It seems like.
No, it's not. There's just joy. Like last year, night sales is walking back from the meetings.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So it's on next to raise. Yeah, it's 5:30. Yeah, they say that. Different.
Okay, let's get started. Welcome everyone to the City of Harbor Springs Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, July 16th at 5:30 Eastern. Let's start with a roll call, Jeff.
Mark Finkelstein,
Here.
Barry Lustgarten,
Here.
Bob Buckner,
Here.
Jeannie Benjamin,
Here.
Vanessa Warren,
Here.
Kenny Stewart,
Here.
Tony Johnson,
Here.
Chip Everest,
Here.
Garen Gaffigan,
Here.
Avery Hoffman, and we have everybody.
Excellent.
So we have a quorum.
Excellent. Jeff, would you like to introduce our
Oh.
new representative from the Beckett Rate?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I dropped the ball there. So Ken Lane is from Beck and Raider, and he'll be stepping in, fulfilling the role as our consultant.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to meet everyone.
All right, any comments on the meeting, the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes, I see the minutes were updated to reflect that I was absent for all the votes, but I'm still showing as present for the meeting.
Oh, how did you do that?
Oh, at the top.
The roll call, I just need to be moved to absent.
Any other thoughts or comments?
I move to approve the June minutes.
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. Okay, let's open the meeting to public comments. As I try to remember to remind everyone at every one of these meetings, the comments for the public comment section should only be comments on items that are not on the agenda. So if you have anything that you want to talk about that is on the agenda, let's hold that. Jeff,
Do I need to go up here?
if you don't mind.
How are you? So. This is all by accident, kind of, there's like 3 or 4 houses in Harbor Springs I can think of that are pretty. Blight, I think is a nice word, actually unsafe is even a better word.
You introduce yourself just for the record.
I'm sorry, Jeff James, 2nd Street. Anyway, 2 on Traverse Street, I can think of, 1 on Lake Street, and 1 is on Glen Drive. And by accident, we end up talking to let's call him the new city zoning guy for Emmett County. Does that ring a bell? New guy? Anyway, I said, what do we do about this? City council hadn't done anything. Nobody in the city's done anything about these homes. They're vacant, they're dangerous. One of them was for sale. You couldn't even go look at it because it was too dangerous to go inside. I think it was the North House on Traverse Street. Anyway, he said that City of Harbor Springs doesn't have any rules or regulations about blight. How do we overcome that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, apparently that one doesn't work.
I can hear you.
All right, I'll just speak loud. So our blight language doesn't address structures. It addresses like items that would be in someone's yard or things like that. We do have another section of the city code that talks about dangerous structures. And there's some criteria that a property would have to meet in order to be considered a dangerous structure, and there's a process outlined in there. I am aware of a couple properties in town that we have started receiving some concerns about from the public. And I did just recently give the city manager a letter regarding a few properties. So we have started the process. It's a more involved process than what we would see for other types of zoning violations. And it, depending on how things go, but we have started looking into that and we are following the process. So.
Good timing. Yeah. Thank you, Joe.
All right, reach out to me with some of the properties that you have thought of, because I think you listed a street that I didn't currently have something going on with.
Wonderful. Very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Other comments? No?
One right here, you got it.
Yeah.
Hi, Bill Mulder, 372 West Summit Street. Hi, Planning Commission. Great to see you again. And thanks to Jeff for mentioning that. I've been wondering about that too, Jeff, lately, walking around town. There are some pretty bad looking places. So I share his concerns. But the topic that I wanted to address was to say thank you to John Michelangelo, who has substituted Ken in to take his place. And want to recognize some of the great work that John did for us and how much I appreciate it. I think many other people do too. He was great to work with, beyond responsive, very effective, easily accessible, and I think he was a great partner. In fact, in my career as a service provider and a client, I think the relationship that the city of Harbor Springs has with John and Beckett Rader is really in the top tier. So I thank John very much. Remember when we were doing zoning meetings every 2 weeks? He was doing, super accelerated turnaround. So never missed a commitment and gave us good advice. Didn't lead us, but gave us good advice. And now I'd like to welcome Ken. I've seen Ken in action in West Traverse Township Planning Commission meetings, and he's doing a great job. And I know he'll do one for us too. So thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Other thoughts, other comments?
Wendy Reed, 539 East Bluff Drive. I also was going to bring up Jeff James' concerns, particularly the Glen Drive property, because I've had complaints about it. And number two, I'm wondering, when you start construction, do you have any obligation to the city to keep your lawn mowed? Because there's a number of construction properties that aren't mowing their lawn. So I'm wondering about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Do you want to address that question?
I don't think there's anything in the code that says that they're during a construction project, they're exempt from that section of our city code that requires lawns to be kept. But I think sometimes, especially if they have a lot of material and things around, some areas of the property might be difficult to keep maintained properly. But I'll do another drive around and look for properties that are being maintained.
Thanks. Anyone else? Okay, great. So let's move on to old and new business. The first item on the agenda is a review of the memo from the city attorney. For those of you who were here last month, you'll recall that the planning commission asked the city attorney, Mr. Raymer, for his opinion on a couple of issues. The first one is what impact, if any, will the 90-day moratorium that has been adopted by council on accepting site plans for new construction of buildings exceeding 30 feet in height and 2 stories, and in what capacity would that have an impact on the planning commission's ability to review the site plans for the proposed project at 289 East Main Street? The second question we asked for an opinion on is the first floor private residential parking garage within the proposed building permitted under the current zoning ordinance? So, planning commission, we can have a conversation about this. I can provide what I consider maybe I should provide what I consider a summary of the memorandum, and then we can have a conversation about it. So with respect to the memorandum, Mr. Raymer was pretty clear that he concluded that it would not apply to the site plan for 289 East Main Street. So the site plan would still need to be reviewed in the context of that moratorium. However, with respect to the residential parking lot that is proposed for the first floor on 289 East Main Street, Mr. Raymer concluded that it would not be compliant with the ordinance under the current zoning code. That would not be permitted in the current zoning code. So no issue at all on the memorandum, and private parking on first level of a building is a non-compliant use. Planning Commission. Any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, my review of the document, yeah, well, that, your summary was correct, very clear.
Yes.
Just a couple of brief comments on the first question, should we continue to develop the proposal 289 proposal, or should process it or review it, et cetera, whatever you want to call. The fact that council said yes, I concur, and also that was in the spirit of when I made the motion to put a pause on, because it would be unfair to just put a halt to anything that has already come into the system. So I'm glad that there's agreement on that. As far as the second item about parking, I was on record in the last meeting and the prior meeting when we first saw the proposal that I thought first floor parking was not in the spirit of the code, and it looks as though it's truly hard coded in the code that it's not allowed. And my concern for that was mostly around the fact that in the CBD business district, I feel that the first floor needs to be dedicated towards public use in whatever configuration that means, so that the public has benefits from that space, not just a few people that happen to be owners. So once again, the fact that legal counsel's opinion supports that, I support that as well, and glad to see it. Thanks.
Thank you, Kenny. Other comments? Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I think one thing that we should consider here is this document right now that we've received from Mr. Raymer is confidential, and we haven't shared it with anybody other than planning commission members and staff affiliated with the planning commission. It might benefit us if you would like to have a discussion among planning commission members to determine whether or not you would like to open this up and make this document available to the public. It might be of benefit because we're going to get into a conversation regarding this that some details throughout our discussion may make more sense to the community if we do so, if you guys feel that it's appropriate.
We need a motion for that.
I think a motion would be, if you feel it's the appropriate move to do it.
make a motion to make it public. Second. And already had.
You can do it all in favor.
All in
Can we have a
favor?
discussion before we vote?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Is there a downside to this?
I can't see it.
No.
I don't see it either, but I thought at least we could
Good
ask.
question. What was the language at the end of the letter, Mr. Raymer spoke to that, I believe it was something like at the discretion. I can't call it up fast enough, so. It was at our discretion. Okay.
Release all or portions of this pump opinion to the public if it deems appropriate.
Okay. So that gives us the opportunity to make the choice. Okay. Thank
I
you.
believe Mr. Raymer's suggestion was to make the entire document, except for at the end, there is his potential recommendations for paths forward to release all but that portion.
And I think that makes sense.
I agree. So we have a motion and a second to release the doc. We have a second?
Wait, I seconded it, but we were talking about the entire document or?
Yeah, can we hold on just a second, talk,
Yeah.
one more discussion? So there's a portion of the document that we don't wanna.
It was his recommendation.
Yeah.
There's at the. Before
After the
this,
four asterisks.
Yeah, Yeah, so the last three paragraphs,
between the asterisk and his signature.
so can I restate my motion then?
Absolutely.
Like to make Raymer Moore's memo public or provide to the public, except for the last three paragraphs of the memo above the signature.
And here's the date of the memo.
The date of the memo is July 10, 2026 regarding site plan 289 East Main Street.
Second.
Further conversation? Okay, you want to do a roll call vote?
I think you can do it all in favor.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Great.
I do have copies here if anybody would like a copy.
Does that have the back page retracted?
Yep.
You anticipated.
He was ahead of us.
Since that was Jim's recommendation, I think Jeff was reading the tea leaves.
Just want to make sure.
So I'd like to expand on something that you mentioned earlier. I think it's a little broader than just stating that the ground floor use in the building isn't acceptable within that. If you look at the sections that he's highlighting and what he's talking about, we've got private parking lots in Article 3, and it states that they're only permissible by permitted in B2 and by special land use in B1. So really what he's saying is parking isn't permitted anywhere in the city except for those areas. So with this interpretation, I think we have something that we really need to address and fix. Because right now, if somebody came in and wanted to build a new home in Harbor Springs, they couldn't have a driveway. Right? So this is something that I think we need to take care of and address and make some modifications to as quickly as we can to not impede future projects in other zoning districts than just CBD.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I do have some potential suggestions on some ways to maybe do something. If we want to start that off at some point, and I think maybe when we get to later on with the zoning code discussion, we talk about it more there.
I think that would be the appropriate time.
Yeah.
Okay. Committee members, a conversation regarding the results of Mr. Reamer's letter.
Well, I think it's pretty clear to me that given his letter and his opinion that we should deny this project.
Any other conversation?
I would add that, the parking situation, the individual garages which were originally proposed, or, the current setup with, the issues that we talked about you talked about last time, and I wasn't here, but I watched the recording. Parking has been a continual thread in that conversation, so it would certainly be consistent to raise that as a serious concern about the project.
Others? For what it's worth, my perspective is that in addition to the parking issues, there continues to be some minor concerns, albeit minor, regarding concerns regarding the lighting for the project. It's only partially satisfied. And this is your bailiwick, Vanessa, but the drainage concerns seem to be still unresolved. So it's not just the parking, it's those three things. I think that makes, frankly, in my opinion, approval of the project problematic. Do we have a motion? Did you make a motion?
No, I didn't, but I'd like to move that we deny the project.
I'll second it.
I think that we're getting ahead of ourselves
Okay,
here. We're under the discussion item of discussing the memo. We have now moved to item B, which would be the site plan review. And I think that we should hold off on making any motions regarding that project until we get to that item agenda.
Okay. Any more conversation regarding Jim's letter? Let's move on to item B. Site plan review, 289 East Main Street. Any incremental conversation about that specific to the site plan review? Okay.
Just a comment, call it for the record. We were given a summary from John from Beckett Rader, and it showed a matrix of various aspects regarding the latest site plan proposal on 289 East Main. And I just wanted to point out that at the bottom of page 4, it showed parking is judged to be satisfied, but it also goes on to note that the applicant is exceeding the 1 space per residence requirement, which is true. But I just wanted to point out it's a bit semantics, but to say that it's satisfied, but yet it violates the code in this other aspect doesn't sound very satisfied. Yeah. And that was the word that he used, and that's fine, but I would challenge that word to say that it did not satisfy the full extent of the code for that area. No other comments?
Anyone else? Mark? Tony?
I do have a comment, but I'll save it for discussion.
Okay. Chip? I know where you're standing.
You know where I stand.
Maybe just one other comment for the record. I think all of us, well, I know all of the planning commission received a video from one of the community members that discussed, they interviewed all of the members, not all of the members, members at the United Methodist Church of Harbor Springs, as well as the current pastor, former pastor. They did have a concern about shadowing of such a large building. So yes, it's something to note, an impact on the community. For what it's worth, if you didn't get a chance to see that video, it's interesting. And it gives us information. So just to keep that in mind as well.
Thank you. Barry, any thoughts?
I mean, I agree with, it really doesn't meet any of the criteria that we've been looking for to have fixed. So right now, we're kind of in the same place we were last month. So right now, I think just approving this or even moving forward with partial approval, it really doesn't make sense because it hasn't changed in 2 months since the previous changes.
Yeah. Bit of a groundhog day. Yeah. Jeannie?
I would echo everything that's already been said.
Agreed.
Vanessa, any thoughts?
No, I'm in the same spot.
So we have a motion?
We have a motion?
I second it.
Okay.
Well, I think we'd need to restate that.
Restate the motion.
Yeah, that's a question.
Yes, I move we deny the project.
And I second it.
Okay. You want to do a roll call?
Discussion.
I'm sorry, absolutely.
So first question is a procedural one. If we deny this application, is the applicant free to resubmit at a later time? Or would it have to be a fundamentally different project at that point? Okay, while we're thinking about that.
Are they restricted? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
But would they be restricted? If we deny it, then they would fall under the moratorium. Because they'd have to resubmit a site plan, so they can't do that during the 90-day period. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. I'm not sure how much they would have to adjust a plan to bring it back for resubmittal. So I don't have the answer to that question, Tony. But yes, if we deny, then they would need to resubmit a new application. And then that would fall under our current moratorium. They'd have to wait till the end of that moratorium, and then whatever rules we have in place following that, those would be the guidelines that we would have in place for reviewing and the application at that time.
Just to follow up on this topic. Is it dependent on whether we call this project denied or postponed? Is that the difference?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, if we table for later discussion, we are still reviewing the existing application. If we deny, that means they have to submit a new application. And the moratorium that is in place is a moratorium on the receipt of new applications.
In response to the question too, if an application for a site plan is denied in whole or in parts, it can't be resubmitted unless the site plan has been substantially changed. So notwithstanding the moratorium, that would be the provision of the zoning ordinance that would apply.
Thank you for that. And then my other is more a statement is when we go to vote on this, I'll be looking mostly at the issue of parking and drainage in making my decision.
Any other comments that the members would like to submit?
Can I just ask Tony to clarify what you just said? Just so I get where you're coming from.
See, however,
Okay, thanks.
All right. Let's have a roll call vote.
Gary Gopkin.
Hey,
Do the applicants get an opportunity to respond?
planning commission, what do you think? I mean, the answer is we're not obligated to.
Mr. Chair, it depends on if they have any new information that changes the merits of a proposal, in my view. If it's comments or explanation, we kind of know that, but something that's not in the proposal that would change our mind about some of these fundamental reasons we're rejecting. Okay, but that's just my opinion. It's up to you.
Yeah.
But they didn't provide anything to even.
Yeah, I mean, that's my feeling, is it's not in the proposal, we really can't consider it, can we? What do we think?
Makes sense.
Okay, I would say no, sorry.
Gary Gopkin.
Deny.
Chip Everett, well, you're
Yes. Yes.
voting in favor of the motion. Chip Everett.
Yes.
Tony Johnson,
Yes.
Kenny Stewart,
Yes.
Vanessa Warren,
Yes.
Jeannie Benjamin,
Yes.
Bob Buckner.
Yes.
Barry Lustgarten,
Yes.
Mark Nicholson,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, the next order of business is item C, site plan review for 300 Lake Street, Harbor Market. Jeff and possibly Ken, can you walk us through this? I looked at this and I don't really know what we're supposed to be evaluating.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, let me pull this up for you. So let me also provide a little bit of background. A summer or two ago, the Department of Public Works reached out to me. They had some concerns regarding the drainage as it connected to Traverse Street. And how that was being handled. The drain that was in place there was not doing what it was supposed to do and was causing some issues. So we initially reached out to Harbor Market about that issue, started discussions like what do we need to do to get some of this resolved. And then through that discussion, it morphed into partially talking about that drainage, but also the request from Harbor Market to add some more parking spaces, right? One thing that you will see in the review is they are a little bit over the maximum parking that's allowed, but we felt that adding these spaces was okay, primarily because they've given up a significant portion of their property to allow Emmett County to place the recycling bins at that site. So that's taking up space, so we're like, let's let them do this, right? But through that, some of the parking that they're adding is being added into where previously it was a drain field area or area to handle the water runoff. So we said we need to see more of a drainage plan to show us how you're going to be handling the water. If we're making this modification, how will that affect where water goes? Also then addressing and dealing with the drain on Traverse Street and getting that fixed or better suited to handle the solution. So that's what started this conversation, and then Scott Brown is here. He can talk about the project and a little more if you'd like. But that's where we're at. You want to say anything, Scott?
I thought we were here.
Oh,
Who knows more about this than I do?
Good evening, Aaron Nordman with Performance Engineers and now Benchmark Engineering also. As you can see, the primary purpose of the site plan is Mr. Brown's trying to create a little extra parking due to congestion created by all the traffic through to the recycle area, which has steadily increased over the years. And while he's gonna do this additional parking area, what he's trying to do also is correct some of the drainage issues that are out there. So you see kind of the darker hatched areas there are the pavement replacement. So the one on Clark Street
if you've been to the market, you'll know it's kind of cobbled there already, kind of broken up. So we're gonna repave that and divert that into a new little depression to let that soak away in that area. The offset for the hard surface of the new parking spots, we're splitting between these two little retention areas on either side of it. And then at the other end of Traverse Street, there's, if you're familiar with it, there's a little leach basin that's in a depression. And there's a cone and usually a puddle on it. And we're trying to correct that by including a new little overflow pipe that would take the water off the public right of way and into his property, where it'll go through his retention system, back on another pipe and down into the city drainage system. So the main concern tonight is, in order to get a paving project done, he's kind of running out of time. You know, he's got to get a paver in here, fine grade it, get this thing ready and get paved. So I understand the drainage concerns that have been brought forth by Beckett and Rader and the city, and by all means, we want to address all this stuff with you guys, but I'm hoping to get an approval tonight because, I mean, we feel like we're only improving the drainage system here, and we're actually creating a positive outlet out of Traverse Street that is supported by the DPW guys. Brian Nolan has been in contact with them. They understand by putting this pipe in, we're gonna take the water off the street there, which has been, you know, ice in the winter and a puddle, and we're trying to get all this corrected. But we're just afraid that we're gonna run out of time if we wait another month to get an action on this, to be able to then go forward and get pavement done in time. So really, in the scale of things, you know, I know maybe there's some deficiencies in the overall addressing of how we presented everything, but we're hoping you guys have enough familiarity with the site, everybody's been there, everybody knows what we're talking about here. And the scale of what we're doing is not that large. We're hoping that, you know, we have properly quantified what we're doing in the project. We're just asking that we can help think through discussion to make sure we address whatever you guys are concerned about, to let Mr. Brown move forward, get these improvements done.
Jeff, let me ask a question. Would it be appropriate to approve the project contingent on their addressing some of the, not some of the, all of the points that have been raised by Beckett and Rader? And would that streamline the process at all?
I think it's possible. You know, that, you know, we did, you know, through that review, we found some areas that there was maybe a little bit of lack of detail. I think through discussion, if that could be something we could do. Ken, does that seem?
So the review from our engineering division was based on the June 18th site plan. And as we've discussed, there were some deficiencies noted. A revised plan was submitted yesterday, and although I did forward it to our engineering folks, I have not heard back as of today. So I'm not sure if the issues have been fully addressed. You know, that would be sufficient to the memo that was issued from, you know, Beckett and Rader's engineering department. My preference would be to postpone to allow our engineering people to look at the most recent plan and offer comments. But it's up to the planning commission on how you want to proceed.
Okay.
I'm all for the intent of going forward as soon as we can. I use those recycle bins twice a week, and I've driven my car through the ice and the puddles, and so I commend you for moving forward with something like this. What is the sense of urgency? Is the concern about the weather shutting off a window for the blacktop work, or what?
That and my contractor getting the time, he's getting booked up
Right, I see.
for my excavator.
Okay, so you're hoping to schedule the service?
Yes.
I see. Okay. Again, I'm all for the intent, but I have a procedural concern, and if the rest of the planning commission is fine with this, then I'll yield. But you know, we just disqualified a major project in part because of drainage, and we all know this site and we know the value of the store and everything else. But feel it would be difficult for us to defend this one where drainage was one of the key reasons for the last one to be rejected. And it sounds like we're close. And I want to try to allow their schedule to go forward, but I don't quite feel comfortable, even in this case, having a bit of a double standard for the fact that we've got these two projects back to back.
Appreciate your thoughts. Others?
Go ahead. So I'm with you, Kenny. I think just to remain consistent with our decision and kind of how we're working, with the previous person bringing up. I think that just to stay consistent, we need to kind of follow suit, so.
Well, I'm with you as well, but I wanted to be clear from my perspective. The previous project had serious problems. I don't want to even think that we have a double standard. We don't. They had parking, drainage was an issue, but so I want to be on the record saying we do not have a double standard.
Couple questions. It's about 6 parking spaces close to the car wash. That would be the southeast corner of the lot. They were added within the last maybe 2 to 3 years. Is that
3 years?
3 years?
We had the addition brought on, that had to have the extra parking spots, and that's where the drainage ditch was found.
Okay,
The culvert was buried underneath the ground.
got it. Okay,
Before that, all the water would run by and go down the street. But once we had to expand the parking, we found that, and that's where we got the problem.
got it. Okay. So those additional parking spots were approved as part of the addition,
Yes.
which preceded me on planning. So good. Thank you for that clarification. In this rethink of the parking lot, was there any consideration given to pedestrian access? I asked that as somebody who regularly walks to the market, particularly in the wintertime, where that corner has always been a problem. There's really no great pedestrian access towards the front door from any of the streets.
Well, that's where on the side where the entrance is, I'd like to put a walkway through there. But
That would be greatly appreciated.
I'm not doing that until I get this done first,
Okay,
if that's possible.
thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
And part of the purpose of the parking is the vehicle movements as people are coming through doing the recycling.
Mhm.
To get people out of the traffic area and into a parking spot. So that they can free that lane for traffic to keep moving in and out of the recycle area. But, I mean, maybe to kind of circle back to not creating double standards and that type of thing. The stormwater portion of your zoning ordinance is not specific about design storms and this sort of thing. So one of the review comments is we designed around a 10-year storm. And it's the opinion, I'll go back at Ranger Engineer, that it should be something more. So you're not, if you move forward with us on this approval, it's not that you're violating your ordinance. Their engineer, I don't know where he's from or if he's been to the site or anything, he says that he's aware that this area has a history of flooding. And he's recommending basically like a drainage study for it. To me, I mean, Benchmark did the original site plan in 1978. We did the amendments in 1984. We've been involved in this project for a long time. And there's no flooding on this property that is a historic concern. There is this issue on Traverse Street with this entrance and lack of drainage in that area that we're trying to correct. But I don't see anything in our submittal that is a violation of the ordinance. That would be some conflict. That would be resolved through additional, that we couldn't work through. Outside of here with a contingent approval. Is what I'm really hoping for. So just to be clear that we have nothing in our package. In the review letter, that's a clear violation that we haven't addressed. We've added these spot elevations like the ask, we put the arrows showing where the roof drains. These were just additional details to help them understand. Our thought was the original park, it's all existing. We're not changing any of that, so we didn't show a lot of detail. And they're just requesting more detail on what is going on in the existing lot.
Yes.
I would just respond by saying that, the ordinance, one of the provisions for site plan review says that grading and drainage plans shall be subject to review by the city's consulting engineer. And I'm not going to dispute that the modified plan addresses the, deficiencies noted in the June memo from my colleague, but he hasn't had a chance to review the revised plan, and understandably, we just received it yesterday.
Yeah.
So again,
We
he
just
might
received
review
these
it.
on Friday, the comments.
Right.
So this is, for those of us who go to the market, which there are a lot of, I'm sure, definitely needs correction. So I appreciate that you're taking ownership and trying to do it. Is this the area where the retention pond would be?
There would be a new one, and then just south of it. And
This?
that would be a new one too.
South.
And then south,
This.
yes.
Or what?
So do you think, and I think that was one of the questions Mr. Enla noted, that historically, maybe if there were huge amounts of water in a short period, would you feel comfortable with that covering a lot more water than we have now?
Yeah, I mean, we went through historic rain here this spring, and did you have flooding in your parking lot?
Just the catch basin, that was it. Yeah. There was no water in anywhere else.
And most of this water is from the street, it's not his water that's coming on that catch basin.
Well, I'll offer an opinion. I kind of understand where Kenny is coming from. I mean, it's definitely a project that I think it sounds like everyone would support. But it's a little awkward to ask us to approve something that we don't have all the details on. And that's kind of where I'm coming out, guys. Thoughts?
Let's see the new plan.
Yeah.
I think it's. I think you basically have yes votes from all of us, subject to, we really need to follow a procedure and have all the information before we make a final decision. As much as we all obviously kind of want to say yes right now, we really all, I think, are the same camp that we need to see all our consultants' information back to us with that's one of the reasons we hire them. And one of the reasons we follow certain standards and procedures, and I think we're all in agreement that we really need to have that information.
And I do appreciate having procedures and following the procedures, but I mean, if you look at the 6 comments, there's not much in here that really changes anything that was submitted. It's additional detail to explain it perhaps, but we've just talked about all of this and it's all right there. I mean, there's nothing else that's gonna come forward out of it.
I understand. I think what Mark is saying is valid, though. I mean, when our advisor tells us that all the Ts are crossed and all the Is are dotted, we're ready to give you the go ahead. But I don't think until that's done, any of us feel, or at least I don't feel comfortable doing that.
And we certainly understand the storm event. We're not asking you to go beyond the storm event or the ordinance is what it says. But there are issues. Just show us the information.
What question? Now I'm putting my thumb on the other side of the scale. What if they hadn't submitted this revised drainage yesterday?
Yes.
Okay. What if this proposal in our discussion and our ultimate vote or no vote would be based on the submission not including that? Would you have concerns about drainage
Yes.
sufficient to
I
postpone?
want to talk about it. Number 4. No, there's no inlets, there's no outlets, there's not, everything is spot elevations, there's no existing contours. It just seems just to be lacking, and maybe the next one has it, which is great, but then let's just see it.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting we look at even, we can look at number 5, you know what, that's where, you know, I want to take it eventually, but we can't, so.
I mean, there's only one contour on it. It's flat, so there's only one contour on it.
Jeff, do we need a motion?
We have an application and we need to make a call on that application and either approve, deny, or table pending review of further information.
Are there any options to expedite this as far as this was submitted yesterday to the engineer, Beck & Rader? Is there any way to expedite the process by?
You mean like holding a special meeting to?
Or, yeah, or
Well,
just,
we would have to still vote on
right,
We would have to meet sooner than a month from now.
it. Yeah.
What are we asking the applicant to come back with?
well, he submitted everything, so I think we're just waiting.
Address the questions that Raider raised.
So the applicant is really in a situation where they have to respond to those.
And they may very well have done that already, but it was submitted yesterday.
Yes. Part of that's because we didn't get review comments until Friday. So we submitted in June 19th or whatever it was. We get comments on the Friday, this meeting's already scheduled, we turned it around in a couple business days. And then here we are. And to me, you know, I think knowledge of the site is almost as valuable as like the engineering analysis, because people who have been here and driven by here for years, you know what the drainage problems are, right? And he's trying to fix these. And so, you know, put a cost on a local business owner to have us then go do a drainage study and do these extra steps. I mean, we're glad to do it to make sure we satisfy what you guys want, but in some regard, to me, it's like, you got a local business owner who's been impacted by providing a community service and having these recycled things in his parking lot. His parking lot takes the abuse of all the trucks, all the traffic. He wants to add these spots and clean up some drainage. I was just hopeful that we get some consideration for maybe like a contingent approval and we work through, make sure that Beck & Rader's engineer and your zoning administrator are satisfied that we have addressed whatever came out of here. But just to let Mr. Brown move forward as quick as he can to get this on the construction schedule. That's really what I'm asking.
Just a procedural question, and you bring up very fair points, and especially the timing that was put upon you. How soon, hypothetically, could we schedule a special meeting? Do we need a 2-week window for notifications, all those sorts of things?
I think the biggest factor that's gonna adjust when we're able to have a special meeting is when we have the review of the revised plan. And I don't know that I can guarantee that we would have that review in suitable enough time to put together a packet for an unspecified yet date for when that meeting would take place.
Continuing
That's
my
my concern.
hypothetical, what if they were to turn this around in a matter of a few days? When is the soonest that we could procedurally have a special meeting?
I believe we can post a special meeting 18 hours before the meeting.
Okay.
That's the quickest we could get a meeting. So what I certainly can do is as soon as we receive that or the review from the engineer, I can email that out to all the planning commission members. And then if you feel that it is worthwhile to then have a special meeting, we can get something scheduled within 18 hours. And I'd have to look at the details of who can call that special meeting. I believe it's the chair, maybe another person or something like that. But there is a way to do that.
That's helpful, and if, I'll just say this, if we choose to postpone, I would be interested in entertaining a special meeting as soon as we know all the information.
Yeah, I like that idea for sure, Kenny. when we first started the discussion, we talked about giving you an approval and giving you the authority to say whether or not he complies or not. I think the support for the project itself is pretty high on this staff, on this group. And so if there's a way that we can approve it subject to them complying with that, with your review, I'm fine with that.
You see that we could do. Yeah, we could approve it with conditions that before final approval, that the zoning administrator and an engineer consultant sign off on the project. That would be another path.
And avoid a special meeting.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that idea too.
And for my part, we'll get this turned around as quickly as we possibly can. One day was not enough.
Can you slide the drawing?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, this is not.
No, that's fine. I'm interested in the blow up of the area right there. Can you hone in on where that detention pond is gonna be?
The one by Clark Street.
Yeah. So we have some contour lines there, 702, 701, 700. Those are contour lines. Those are gonna be elevations. Where are you pulling those elevations from to get that?
So those are survey shots, the 703, 14, 699, 84, 699, coming in, come down.
Where 702, 701, and 700, those are just segmented lines. Where are you pulling those contours from? Somewhere on site, somewhere from Clark Street? Where are those, where is that contour coming to even make that happen? Are you bringing soil in? How are you connecting it to the existing contours? The 702, 701, and 700, I don't understand that.
So you see the 703, 14 on Clark Street
Yes,
is an existing elevation shot.
yes. So where is 703? How, and where are you connecting to 702, 701, and 700? What contour lines are you connecting to?
So we're showing a grading, a slope between the existing shots on the survey and the proposed depression down into the retention areas.
If I may,
Yes.
I think what's maybe causing some disconnect here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we're seeing is that the plans that have been provided look like they're showing us updates and changes to the areas that they're proposing to work on. And I think that's where we're having some disconnect, is we're expecting to see updated grading information for the site. And I think that's where we're having.
But that's what it calls for.
Right. Part of my reasoning of why I feel it's important that we have a drainage plan for the entire site is they're not just proposing to make some small minor changes. They're proposing, so this area where they're adding the 7 parking spaces, that whole area used to be a retention area.
Yes.
And they're replacing that with parking, and they're shrinking the size of the retention area on that side of the property. So my question was, we need to address and make sure that we're still handling water runoff from the site where we no longer have those retention areas.
They're trying to solve a drainage issue by adding impervious pavement. And unless I see existing contours, I just can't see how it works. And 703 is just not even there. I just need to see more.
Vanessa, are you comfortable deferring, and you're kind of our expert on the panel, are you comfortable deferring this to Beck and Reed to basically make a decision along with Jeff? Or do you feel more comfortable them making a recommendation for us to make the decision?
Yeah, I guess the engineers can do it, I guess.
I didn't hear what you said.
I guess the engineers can do it.
you're comfortable with Beckett Rader and that the engineer from that team
Yeah.
without us.
That's fine.
And if we get into a position where planning consultant and the zoning administrator feel we can't approve it, and we can always bring it back to the planning commission.
At least we're fair to the applicant that way, and we're not holding them up.
Right.
I think that's a good approach.
I have a question for consideration for you guys and for her. What would be the effect of getting rid of that retention area and instead of impervious substance, have that part of the extra part be gravel or semi-permeable?
Yeah, I mean, pervious pavers or other options. I'm sure they don't want gravel. But once again, it's hard to see without,
So you don't have hard surface for the whole thing. My point is that a lot of
I'm
areas
sure they
are
don't
going
want
to
gravel,
impervious And more permeable type surfaces.
Those are usually pretty costly, though. They're getting to permeable paver type.
oh yeah, absolutely. We get that. I just want the dots connected.
Yes. Doing.
If you're not, are you comfortable having them connect the dots, or do you want me, I'll go with whatever way you want.
I'm comfortable with the engineers connecting the dots. I'm really hoping that we can start seeing some drainage plans that make sense.
Yes, I will make a motion that we have Beckett and Rader take a look at the revised plans as soon as possible
That have been submitted.
that have been submitted. And if, based on the judgment of Beckett and Rader and Jeff, they feel like they comply with the zoning ordinance and the drainage appropriately, then we go ahead and approve it. Otherwise, if it appears that it is not favorable as far as drainage is concerned, that you bring it back to us and then we deal.
I second that.
Conversation?
So just to say the same thing, only differently. It's a contingent approval based on the future approval of the two of them, once all those new plans have been reviewed.
Yeah.
Which, okay. got it.
I agree. All right, we have a second?
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your consideration on this. I appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, could I just make a comment? Independent of the drainage. We all know and love trying to get into those recycle bins. When 3 or 4 trucks are also trying to get into those recycle bins. I asked if maybe look at some different line options for that area. And I'm thinking, for example, the Emmett County Transfer Station has lines that tell people to nose in and pull back out again. And the problem that you might be creating that you should take a look at by keeping those lines that close to the front of those recycle bins, it narrows that space. And human nature, people are still gonna drive in there perpendicular to those bins and clog it all up. And the problem could actually be worse because they'll be able to park even closer to the bins. So take a look at some different options there. And think about how traffic goes in and out, given that they've got an extended pickup. Or 3 of them, okay? Thanks.
Okay.
You
Thank you, Kenny. All right, moving along to item D, zoning code discussions. Before we delve into detail on this, Jeff, I was wondering if you could potentially walk us through what a timeline might look like for finalizing any revisions to the ordinance, and how does it relate to when the moratorium expires? In other words, can we get this done within that time?
If we are diligent, yes, we can get this done. So I think Ken and I were just talking about this today. My hope is that if we go through this memo that John Evangelis prepared, kind of denoting all the comments that you guys had, putting them into, you know, the ideas here. If we can take today and come up with our suggested language of what you would like to see in the new code. We will then have time leaving this meeting to create that draft language, bring it back to the next meeting where you could review what that language would look like, and then schedule a public hearing. We would then be able to have that public hearing just before the end of the moratorium, handing things over to city council for their final adoption. If we stick to that schedule, we can get through this within the duration of the moratorium. If we get hung up, we get hung up, we would then have to potentially look at an extension of that moratorium, which would not be optimal, but if we had to do it, we could. I'd really like to see us stay on schedule though, and not do that. It just means that we have to be diligent. If we do find something that needs more time, it needs more time.
Okay. So planning commission. Any thoughts on how to best tackle this issue? And recognize that this is not something that there's gonna be unanimity on. I mean, we're gonna have people who think some things are great, other things are not great. And ultimately, we have to recognize that the majority needs to prevail here, you know. My thoughts are that there's only 9 of us. If we could look at, for example, the topic review and just give a quick perspective on how each of us individually feels about these topics. We can look for the ones where there's unanimous agreement, and those should be easy. And then we can focus on the areas where there's some conflict.
I like your idea. And if you want a comment, I'd love to start out.
I would love for you to comment.
Right. So I don't know how this happened between Mr. Iaconiangelis and Jeff, but I submitted my suggestions on July 1st. His memo came out on the 9th. I don't see, especially the one that is, as you all know, near and dear to my heart, which is the architectural review. That is not in there. And
Yes, it is.
not the design, but the architectural review standard, 5,000 feet to 1,000 feet. I don't see that in there. If it's there, help me see it, but I don't know how that didn't get in. My other concerns, I think, were echoed by other commission members. That one is not in there, and that is a key item that I think we need to discuss.
So you're talking about the architectural review committee.
Yes, and
Okay,
and
as
it's
opposed to
specific,
an architect-
exactly. So this is section 8,
Yes.
Article 8, section 8.5.5, line B. I brought this up when we were doing the code. 5,000 feet is way, way, way too big. We don't even have that in Petoskey. I think it's 1,500. So my suggestion was to bring it to 1,000. I'd be open to discuss something. 5,000 is way too big, but it's not even on the list.
You're referring to the section of the code for administrative review committee.
Exactly.
I think the reason it's not on the list is because it doesn't have anything to do with the central business district specific zoning language that we were told to review.
But
That's my assumption. I'm not saying that we don't need to go back and review that at some point in time. But that's,
But that is a key CBD item. I'm not sure why wouldn't that be something we would want to say in the CBD?
you would be willing to hand that over to the administrative review committee?
I want it to be, no, that's what I'm saying. Right now, it says 5,000 square feet or less is all handled by ARC. Why would we want
That's
that?
not true. That's,
Look at section 8.5.5.
we've had this discussion before,
We
and
did.
I think your interpretation of that section is inaccurate.
Show me where I'm wrong. 5,000 square feet is just way too big to have the ARC make that decision. That should come back to planning. And I say 1,000, I'd be open to maybe 1,500. Petoskey doesn't have 5,000.
I think where the confusion is occurring, Aaron, is that the administrative review committee, not architectural review committee, but the
Exactly.
administrative review committee can only weigh in with an opinion on something that has already been approved by the planning commission at large.
But they can still make a decision, granted within parameters, for items that are 5,000 square feet or less. That is way too big. We don't have any surrounding communities that have a parameter that large.
I understand, sir.
I think the insinuation that I've heard before, and correct me if I'm taking what you're saying and interpreting it wrong, is that if I had a new building that was 5,000 square feet or less, that a new building would be administrative review committee approved?
No, I wasn't thinking of a new building.
Okay, give me an example of a project that you think would be through this 5,000 square feet,
So if
something
you,
that an ARC would approve?
okay, so if you had a scenario where, say, you have 3 buildings that are connected, say Gurney's, Crump's, or our fudge shop, and the next door neighboring building, they're connected. Those, if that total square footage was 5,000 or less, and they were gonna make a determination that was within planning, but somehow they were able to take some minor change, and maybe I shouldn't say minor because it may not be minor, where the ARC with only one planning member can then make that decision with a group of other non-planners. Why would we want to have that?
Give me an example of a project. What type?
I don't have a project at hand. All I'm saying is, why would we ever have something like 5,000 square feet when even Petoskey doesn't have anything nearly that large, and they're a much larger city? Charlevoix doesn't.
But just for clarification, before it gets reviewed by the ARC, it gets reviewed by the planning commission.
It does, but what ARC does is they make a change, and rather than having it come back to planning, if it's up to 5,000 or less, we are allowing ARC to make that change. Why would we do that? Why wouldn't it come back to planning if it's that big?
Jeff, if you have the language there, I'm pretty sure the jurisdiction is only over minor changes. We're talking about like adding like 2 contours.
But why would 5,000 square feet or less is not minor? So I'm not sure, in your scenario, that'd be great, but then let's just make it 1,500.
So let's say that I'm building a new building. I'm gonna, let's say for the sake of discussion that we approved the project earlier today and that building was going in. And we've now approved that project, and 2 months from now, before they've started construction, they come back to me and they say, hey, we've got a modification to that. Instead of having a red siding, we're gonna have blue. It's more than 5,000 square feet, but that is a minor change. That would be something that the ARC committee could look at. They don't have to say we're going to approve that or deny. They could kick it back, but that's a minor change. A minor change, it wouldn't be for a major change. Like if they said, we're gonna change this building from 2 stories to 3, or from 3 stories to 2.
No, but they could say, I'm just throwing this out, let's say they change from clapboard siding to stucco, or something that's completely inconsistent with that area. That's up to 5,000 square feet. My point isn't to make this onerous for that group, but if it's not, 5,000 square feet is a big number. Why would we want that to leave planning and go to a group which only has 1 planning member on it?
There's 2, like
2. Chairman and 1 other, I'm sorry.
Can I just get a clarification for your position? Are you saying the change can change the footprint of the building by?
No, I'm not saying, okay, I'm not saying that, because that would require us to.
Close, yeah.
But I'm saying something that you may not see as major, but that certainly could visually be major.
But we're not allowed to make.
Yeah.
My understanding, it has to follow 3 criteria. One of them is a minor amendment, which is under section 8.9.2. Minor is defined as amendments or those modifications the zoning administrator determines will not have no substantial impact on neighboring properties, the general public, those intended to occupy or use the proposed development, but exceed the extent to which can be approved as an insignificant deviation. Then 8.9.1 defines insignificant deviations. And that a deviation is insignificant if the zoning administrator determines it will result in no discernible changes to or impact on neighboring properties, the general public, or those intended to occupy or use proposed development will not noticeably change or relocate the proposed improvements to the property. So in my view, we've approved it, all the significant things. We're talking about very minor changes that can be administratively done through the ARC administration or the committee. And it seems to be pretty well defined in their scope of what they're allowed to do.
So I appreciate that, Mark. I think the problem is it's subjective. If you went from the same footprint and you decided to go from clabbered to Formica, you'd say, well, didn't really change the footprint. It didn't change anything, but that's not something we would probably want to see, or at least we should have some discussion on it. Now, maybe I'm the only one. To me, I don't know why we would have a number that large when no surrounding community that are much larger than us have had the foresight to say 1,500, 1,000. No one is at 5,000. Why 5,000? Why would you want something that big?
I think the changes that you're looking for, the changes that we would be able to make decisions on are the sizes. So if they wanted pink stucco, that's not something that we can we can't decide on that for them, even though it looks terrible. Not something that we would do. We can't make that decision.
Well, I'm not necessarily talking about colors. I'm talking about materials that potentially could be a problem. I would, at least we should be able to see this and have some input. Now, maybe, I mean, if the majority of you think, hey, that's not significant, I get it. I'm just very sensitive to the character of the town and what we're allowing. And that is so out of character to say 5,000 square feet when the precedent from communities around us is nowhere near that. Why are they not at 5,000? They have a lot more things going on in Petoskey and Charlottesville. So why would we choose 5,000?
Let me ask a question that you maybe will help answer that. In other communities, when they establish a maximum size, do they have the latitude to actually just approve the actual plan submittal itself? In other words, it doesn't have to go through, if it's 1,000 feet or less, the administrative review committee can just approve the project rather than it coming to the planning commission. It's
Only with minor changes. And I
I'm
think
not talking about us now. I'm talking about some of these other communities that have smaller thresholds.
every community is different. And John Iquandy did provide us a memo with this a number of months ago when we were really
Right.
digging in and working on this. And Garen, I think you're, in talking about some of these other communities that have smaller limitations, I think you're ignoring some of the other communities that had no limitations. So there were numbers all across the board on what they allowed their similar boards to do in those scenarios. We had a lot of discussion about this. We chose 5,000 square feet. If the planning commission would like to revisit this and pick a different number at some point in time, that's certainly something that we can do.
Darren, what do you want the number to be?
1,500 or less. And frankly, I doubt that this is why, I don't even know why it's an issue. Because if you're saying this is a rarity, and it should be, why would you not at least put some guardrail by saying, all right, we'll make it 1,500. If we find we're getting so many things that the ARC is coming back and saying, hey, I've got 2,000 square feet, it's really throwing us off, then we need to discuss it. I don't think it's an issue. You're leaving open something that could be a problem, and I don't see why we wouldn't just fix it. 5,000 square feet is huge.
My opinion is that we're arguing about something that has a very, very low probability. So I remember a lawyer used to say that we're arguing to give the sleeves off our vest. If you think 1,500 is more appropriate, although it's off topic because it's not specific to CBD, I see no problem with that because the example that's going to actually come to fruition is so rare. Why not make it smaller? I don't care that much because it's a rare potential. That's just my opinion.
I know, and I appreciate that. And this is an opportunity to change it. So, I mean, that's where I'm coming from. If I stand alone, I understand, but at least you've got my opinion.
Well,
I mean, you're not standing alone. I agree with that. And, I mean, why not make it 1,500 or whatever, smaller number? Why not be like other communities? And I mean, kind of on topic of what we're talking about now. You know, I've tended to give people the benefit of the doubt. In my career, my personal life, whatever. And I have given Beckett and Rader the benefit of the doubt that what their advice has been, they think, in the best interest of the city of Harbor Springs and is consistent with current planning practices. I agree with that. But the advice has been so inconsistent with what people have wanted. The prime example is the project we just denied. How that got into the code, the ability to even build something like that was given to us by advice from Beckett and Rader. And so I think the process is going to take longer tonight because what we're looking at is a memo from Beckett and Rader saying this is their view on things. I think we need more input than just that. And so that's kind of my comment on this process.
I think one of the downsides that we should be looking at with this is if we lower this, a lot of applications are gonna get pushed back to us, which is gonna delay projects at least a month. And going back to IGA or Harbor Market, you know, this is people's, where you have a small building season. So this could delay a lot of things, and this is something that we need to think about for changes that we can't really, that really aren't effective. So that's something we should probably think about also.
I think another downside, Barry, is this doesn't have anything to do with the amendments that we want to make to the Central Business District ordinance. I mean, Garen, if you want us to take this up again, we certainly can do that, but do we want to spend tonight talking about it?
We don't have to keep it on our radar. I would say, Jeff, probably if you asked him how many in the last 2 years you've had in ARC, it's probably very minimal. I'm just saying down the road, let's have foresight to say, we probably need to fix that number and change it from 5,000 to 1,500 or less. So is it a deal breaker? No, but let's keep it on our radar. We certainly have bigger fish to fry. But let's not neglect it. And I agree, Barry, that's a consideration, but I think Jeff will tell you the ARCs that have been approved are probably 1 and 2 in the past 10 years. So it's not a big deal. It's a safeguard. It's a guardrail for future events.
But we do have a parking lot for
No, I get that.
a bunch of issues that we want to try and clean up in the ordinance. And
And those are more important. So
if you're comfortable with that.
I am.
Let's put it,
And I appreciate that.
But I want, there is a part, that's what I was going to say as well, but I don't want the parking lot to be forgotten, so I think it's something that we need to continue
Yeah.
adding
Yeah.
and going through. Okay.
Agreed.
Thanks.
But my point is that we're gonna rely on memo from Beckett Rader to make all the decisions on the CBD tonight. I think that's a problem. And so I think we may need to discuss asking council to extend the moratorium so we can address it even on a more fully basis.
Yes.
And I didn't write the memo and maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but I think what the memo does is it takes the comments that were made, compiles them. And based on those, puts forth, 2 options. Those aren't the only options. Those were just the 2 options that John, when he was drafting this, saw. It certainly doesn't paint you into a corner where you either do A or you either do B. It's just for discussion. That was the intent of the memo.
Right.
The way I read it.
I agree with that. But I mean, I don't, it's coming from one source rather than having more of a robust analysis done by other people.
Well, I guess my comment to that is that this is our topic. It's for us to make changes or not, depending on what we believe or what we think, what we feel, what we've heard. This is one input, so I don't want to ask 100 experts on these 30 items because we have points of view. We're the ones that put them on the list because of our experience in the last 2 years. And I feel as though we have enough experience to decide whether we want to carry it forward or not based on the consensus of the group.
I fully agree.
I just feel particularly burned by the fact that the code that we all agreed to, and I agreed to, allowed something like that to happen.
It didn't. The code rejected it. That's why we turned it down.
Okay, public comment?
And let me just finish my point here is that, and I don't want to argue with you about, process here, but it's simply up to us to decide, do we want to do it or not? If you feel that we need more data or more expertise outside of the room, that's okay.
Let's get into the discussion and then maybe we can make that decision, yes or no.
I agree, Kenny. And Chip, I think we all have opinions on whether or not we should allow 2-story buildings or 3-story, right? I mean, let's try and at least develop some sort of consensus on some of the fundamentals so that Ken's got something to work with. We can think through, whether we want other experts to weigh in with an opinion, but, the 9 of us here have had a lot of time to think about what the configuration should be for buildings in the central business district, and I think we can come up with some reasonable modifications to the code. So, where were we 15 minutes ago? What I was thinking is, if we could the 9 of us could come through, look at these topics and provide our perspective on each of those topics. And, maybe someone could even keep score and say, okay, we've got, 9 or 6 that agree and 3 that don't. And why don't you start, Karen?
You want me to start with limiting to 2 stories?
Yep.
I like that. I think we had a member of the community bring this up when we were working on the code, and I think, no one really thought we'd be in a situation where we wouldn't agree to that. So I like that. I think it's a good, for the CBD, it's a good parameter to put on.
Okay. All right. Do you want to, should we do that one topic at a time, or do you want to do the whole thing?
One topic. at a
Let's do one topic at a time and get it voted on.
Good idea.
or-
Okay.
And then with
All right.
discussion if we need to.
Excellent. Well, why don't you go next?
I'm in favor of limiting CBD to 2 stories for any future developments.
Okay. That's 2 for yes.
You're staring at me.
I am.
These have some interaction. So my point of view is that allow 35 feet and 3 stories, provided there are several conditions on that 3rd story. It has to be set back from the edge at least 8 feet, similar to how we talked about HVAC systems and such. So that the view from the city on the street side is that it's actually a 2-story building, but the 3rd story is up and out of the way.
Okay. So that's a slight customization.
Yeah, it follows, I guess, what you call it, step back requirements.
Yeah, so I would be against a limit on 3-story buildings, let the building height control however many stories can be built.
Okay.
If we're restricting just to 1, that would be my position.
I'd be in favor of limiting it to 2 stories.
Okay. Barry?
I'm good with 35 feet, just like residential is 30 feet. I don't see why 5 feet extra in a business district, and that's kind of what we were discussing before. It is interesting what Kenny brought up as far as the 3rd story being pushed back. I think that is something that would be interesting to look at.
So 35 feet, 3 stories, or 35 feet?
Or just, yeah, I'm good with 35 feet, so
2 or 3 stories.
yeah, how many stories they want to put in there.
Okay.
I think history has proven itself, and this whole idea of 2 or 3 stories has come up numerous times, and we get the same backlash from the community, and I think 2 stories is where we sit.
Okay.
What's the height on the 2 stories?
We haven't gotten there yet.
I'm not gonna tell you. We haven't talked about it.
I thought we were, well, and I know you brought in, Kenny, almost 3, the top 3, Kenny kind of brought together, so it's, we were trying to just do 1 at a time, but they do integrate, so.
They
No.
do, so the code that was repealed would have made that setback, but it was repealed. So then that setback went away. I was a proponent of that setback. My question, when I put my ideas on, and maybe it's just not feasible, I thought corner lots should be looked at differently than the non-corner lots. And this was a corner lot. And so that's where I think that human scale was really coming into play, because you got it from all angles. And corner lots are extremely important to a downtown. So I'm sorry, Kenny, I even have to throw in something else. That's corner lots.
That's fine.
What would you propose for language?
I would propose 35 feet except for corner lots.
What would that be in the corner lot?
We could go with 2 stories and it had to be lower.
About 35 feet with retail all around.
Oh, that's tempting. Yeah.
That's what I put in my recommendation.
Yeah, I did as well. I needed retail on that whole first floor,
Yeah,
particularly the
like-
corner lot.
Okay, thank you.
We did, I didn't help, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair. Can I throw out another idea for you guys to contemplate or not, kind of throw it out if you don't like it?
Sure.
It seems to me through discussion that the main point of contention was the mass and scaling.
Right.
That seemed to be what the community really cared about. And I think that mass and scaling is something that is really in comparison, you have to look at what the other buildings are around it. You know, a 3-story building, 35 feet tall, right next to the bank would not be out of scale. But a 3-story building right next to a 1-story building certainly would be. So we talked about it in previous iterations of looking at the code, whether we wanted to do it or not. And one area where you could gain some control to look at mass and scaling beyond just does it meet zoning or not, would be if we did 1 or 2 things. One would be maybe 1-story buildings are approvable by right, but 2 or 3-story buildings are approvable through special land use. Or contemplating the idea of bringing in a test basis in the CBD, an architectural design committee that would look at the style of the building in more detail and how it fits in with the surrounding buildings. We've never really been on board with that too much in the past, but we're now getting to the point where we're getting more requests, larger requests. And that would provide the planning commission with more ability to look at the design characteristics of a building that's proposed and how it fits within the community. Where just by right use doesn't really provide you that ability to look at the things that seem to be what the community cares about. Just a thought for something to maybe look at if we don't think we're ready to look at something like that, then I get it.
Well, I think we certainly are ready to think about stuff like that, but you know, that as I think Mark pointed out, there's so much interconnectivity to all of this. And it makes it hard to just take it one topic at a time. I think if we can get through these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 items and then circle back and say, what do we have here? That might be helpful. I didn't voice my opinion. I would like to limit buildings to 2 stories, but I wouldn't have any problem with a 35-foot 2-story building.
It's 5 to 4.
What's that?
It's 5 to 4.
We can.
There are 2 pages, 20 items.
Okay, the next one addresses the whole 3-story issue directly head on, allow 3 stories. Kenny, you said yes, right?
With
With
condition,
setback, yeah.
yes. I wouldn't allow 35 feet, 3 stories.
Okay. Mark?
Without those conditions.
You want the 3rd floor setback.
Correct.
I just think you throw too many things in here, then you create more issues. I'd like to keep it simple. I'm good with 35 feet, but limited to 2 stories.
Okay,
Just out of curiosity, what is the difference between 2 and 3 stories? What would that do as far as height wise and the size of like the project? what would like aesthetically, just your thoughts on that?
In my opinion, you're gonna create less mass. You may have greater ceiling height, which I think is great because it feels much bigger inside. But in the case of, if they said, hey, they wanted to come in and do 3 condos rather than 6 and do all retail on the main level, and they did 35 feet, it's gonna be massive, but it's not economically practical. So there's gonna be limitations that put on a mass size to begin with. But if I'm doing retail, I'd like to have 15 feet tall ceilings. And if I'm gonna do, a second story that's 12 feet ceilings for my residential, I'm at 25 feet with no, and I want floor to ceiling, so I'm adding all the other level. I'm gonna be over 30 feet just by doing 2 stories, but I wanna create a nicer look.
But you said that's not economical. So are we proposing 2 stories and it's not economical? So we're proposing something that isn't gonna happen?
Not necessarily.
I mean, economical today or tomorrow. or the
Yeah,
next
I mean,
day.
I guess,
I don't want to guess economic.
No.
yeah, I guess I wanted to take back my economic
Okay.
comment. Yeah,
Thank you.
yes, thanks for bringing that up. But I think that difference between 5 feet and which is the 30 and 35, I think, you're gonna limit yourself on ceiling height. I like the idea perhaps on a corner lot, maybe being limited. That can't, that this 30 feet height on a corner lot and 35 feet maximum on lots that are, in line. I do like Vanessa's idea of limiting height on the corner lot, because that will reduce the sight line and mass.
And Mark, you're saying those stick to 2 stories.
2 stories. Yeah.
35 feet.
2 stories, 35 feet in line on a corner lot, 30 feet.
Well, these first 3 are really interrelated, of course, I've already said, to let the building height drive however many stories is my response to 1, so I think my answer to number 2 is consistent. I'll allow whatever fits, so I guess if that's 3 stories, that's fine.
Okay. Chip?
I mean, I'm intrigued by Vanessa's suggestion as well. And it is all interactive, intermingling. And so I'm thinking, I like to limit to 2 stories. And if it's on the corner lot, it should be 30 feet. And maybe inland it could be a little bit higher, but I like the 2 stories for sure.
Okay.
So yeah, that's not a clear answer, I know, but.
Actually, I think I'm starting to hear some consensus for what
Yeah.
Vanessa suggested. I'm a 2-story guy, 35 feet. And I would be more than happy with limiting it on corner lots to 30.
Now comes the bargaining. Vanessa, to try to merge our plans. My assumption is an 8-foot, 35 feet, 3 stories. However, the 3rd story must be set back 8 feet on all sides that face the street. So now the corner lot would have 8 feet back, 8 feet back in both directions. Would that satisfy your corner lot requirement or not? Okay.
Thanks, Vanessa. No 3 stories in a CBD. I'm intrigued with Mark, Chip, and Vanessa's comment. I agree corner lots are definitely something to think about. And I like Mark's idea, especially retail. Jeannie could comment, it is nice to have a really tall first floor. So I'd be willing to discuss height, certainly no more than 35, but definitely only 2 stories in the CBD with some discussion, definitely on corner lots on height. And maybe paring that down a little bit. I don't know, I haven't,
What numbers? We've got to talk numbers. How high on the corner? How high not on the corner?
I like the 30 on the corner. I think that's what you suggested, so I'm totally okay with that. Would I be open, and all of this is in the context of only 2 stories in the CBD. I'm not wavering on that at all. Would I be happy with something a little more than 30 non-corner lot? Potentially. 35 might be a little bit high, but something a little more than 30 for a non-corner, only 2 stories could work.
Somewhere between 30 and 35? I mean, so pin you down here, otherwise we'll never
Put
decide.
me down at 32.
Yeah, I'll take that. They're due to name that note.
Barry?
Yeah, I think the difference of 5 feet really doesn't make a difference. And like I said before, residential is 30, so business district having an extra 5 feet, I support. I would like to see, especially in a corner, retail all the way around, so where that parking would have been, that would look like retail all around, including the back on Third Street. So it brings in more retail, and it lets people be able to build what they need to build to be able to create this retail for us, because I feel like some of that is going away. We don't have enough that, so I believe that that's wouldn't be a bad thing. I would definitely consider what Kenny say as far as setbacks on the top floor. So that would reduce a little bit of the square footage. It would also look a little better, so I would definitely be up with that piece as well.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
I just want to follow up on what Kenny said a lot earlier, that maybe it doesn't have to be retail all the way around, but it has to be public use.
Service.
So I like, instead of using the word retail, like the public.
Yeah,
including retail.
commercial, public
Yeah.
service banks.
Yeah.
CPA attorney.
I like 2 stories. I like 30 feet on the corners, and I'm fine with 35. I think it would allow for differing roof pitches, and it would
Yeah.
make it less universal through.
Okay. All right, and then we know this is the Vanessa amendment, so,
Yeah.
Could I just have one final comment?
no,
And then I'll get off it, sorry. This is the last time I'll pitch the setback, because I know it doesn't have a strong vote. But if you picture a 35-foot tall building in the middle, shall we say, it's not a corner. And then you see a corner lot with the setback from the street, that's 35 feet minus the top 3rd story, which arguably is 10 or 12 feet. So my corner lot building is more like 25 feet tall, which is less than many of you are advocating for a 30-foot corner lot. So keep that in mind.
all right. I'm gonna swing for the fences here. Can we agree from a purely height perspective now, so this is not the actual use itself, but just from a height perspective, could we agree on 2 stories up to 35 feet unless it's a corner lot? If it's a corner lot, it's 30 feet. Is that palatable to everyone, or does that really give somebody on the committee an indigestion?
That's me. Building's a building, doesn't matter how many stories are in.
Okay.
So if we visualize this, I'm trying to think of a 35-foot height building now in town. Jeff, can you give me one?
I don't know offhand. Building, I know at one point we did. Cottage company building is
They're much
49 feet, right? But let me just bring something up for food for thought. All of our tall buildings are on corners. If you look at all of the corners throughout town, that's where our tallest buildings are. So setting a code that says we want our tall buildings in the middle of the block, that's where our 1-story buildings are right now. So we're kind of going opposite of what past practice has been of actual use of properties in town. Bank building is on a corner, Mossberg building is on a corner, those are obviously the 2 tallest.
But I also think that is very old traditional planning.
Yeah.
And times have changed. I mean, I get it. The big churches were on the corner, the banks were on the corner. they were the bigger buildings because that's what people wanted to go and what they wanted to see. But I think people use downtowns and cities differently now, and people are interacting with their public spaces. We are creating these spaces. And my only comment to Tony, a building is a building. I just think that, and I mean, the only thing that gets me with the third floor is sometimes can be glare from windows, more balcony. It's just more eye noise, more busyness. So I don't think that a building is a building. I think that there can be a detriment to a third floor. If not done right. I mean, you could show me a third floor that I would just absolutely love to.
I am, absolutely, I'm confident that an architect can develop a beautiful 35-foot, 3-story building, and they can also develop a hideous 35-foot, 3-story building. So, I mean, this is what we're trying to do is build in safeguards to ensure that that doesn't happen. And I think trying to be thoughtful about building height, building mass more than anything else, because let's face it, in an incremental, I did AI drawings, I think I showed them to you, AI drawings of what the proposed building on Main Street looks like as a 30-foot building. It still looks massive.
Yes.
It's gigantic. So it's not 30 or 35 feet. It's not, frankly, it's not 2-story or 3-story. It's the mass itself, and we haven't even begun to address that problem yet.
Jim just about that, he raised that issue.
Yeah,
The mass.
yeah. So other than Tony, how does everybody feel about 30 feet corner, 35 feet, 2-story?
I have a problem with it for the very reason you mentioned. Imagine a 35-foot tall building, 3 stories. I'm not going to reference the project before because I think we need to be generic. But imagine a 3-story, 35-foot tall building. Now, in your mind, replace the 3 stories with 2 stories, same height. It's still a very tall chunk.
Yeah.
And yes, it can look beautiful. Yes, it can follow the conforming standards and all that stuff. But it doesn't change the bulk equation very much in my mind.
No.
And so.
In all honesty, Kenny, I agree with you. The height, I think, is just a guideline for how tall the buildings could be. The concern that you're raising, which is the bulk, is going to be addressed
Another.
with a bunch of other stuff that we're talking about, like architectural review standards and things.
So should we be limiting the size of these projects as far as how big you can build, as far as wide?
We're
That's
gonna get there.
kind of down the line.
I have a suggestion on that too, yeah. Go ahead, yes.
If I could, so, yeah, and I'd love to get to that because the definition of CBD is 0 lot line. As it stands today.
Right.
I do like the idea of talking about corners specifically, and is there a mechanism somewhere along the way to require a diagonal on the corner? That would open up and kind of, I think, help to alleviate
Yeah.
some of those concerns.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Can we pencil in 30-foot corner, 35-foot mid-block, 2-story? We pencil that in?
I'll abstain, but I
Okay.
won't block through.
2-story definitely, 30 corner definitely. I'm just still trying to visualize a 35 Barbara Boss. Give me a rough perspective, Jeff. Your guitar?
I thought Pierre Guitar was 35.
No, I think he's taller.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I think Wendy was in here at a previous meeting and mentioned how tall that building was and that I think there might be a 3rd floor in it.
I think you're right.
It's not in the central business district, but I think the best example I can provide you with a building that's 35 feet tall with a flat roof, which is what we tend to see more downtown, is Dan Shaheen's home on Bay Street. That's right there at that limit as far as the height of a building. Downtown, I know we did go down at one point and we measured a bunch of buildings. I don't remember any heights at the time of anything that was right at 35 feet.
I believe I remember a New York restaurant was like 33 or 34 feet at the lower corner.
Yes.
Aaron Ockfield, West Traverse Township. The New York restaurant, 33 feet. Lyric Theater, 29 feet. Huzzah, 31 feet. Pierre Guitar, 30. Community Bank Building, 50. Cottage, the two buildings, 48.5 and 49. And there's a building on Third Street that's 25. And that was done by Benchmark. Thank you.
So, huzzah, you know that big white building. I mean, if that's only 30, I'm back to my 32 and not 35. Doesn't that seem appropriate for our CBD only?
I would agree.
Or
Carter Williams, 355 East Bay Street. One thing you might do is stick up a helium balloon at 3 feet and look at it. And then people can understand the height. I got involved in all this because the zoning in my house was being changed dramatically by the planning commission with me barely knowing. I live right in the CBD and they had decided to expand the CBD into my house. That's how I got involved in this. Before that, I wasn't paying attention to. This whole discussion feels a teeny bit arbitrary. I know you're all working hard on it, but there are people who own property in those areas whose lives are impacted by this decision in ways that not many of you understand. In my case, it affected my home dramatically, and that's why I've spent so much time. I don't want to keep going forward with the idea that I have to sit in every single planning commission to understand what's going on. If you do corner lots, you may be spot zoning, so you may have an issue there. Just in the parking definition we had earlier, we don't have a definition for public parking in the zoning, but it was cited. In Article 6, it says that people have to have the same 289 building somewhere else has to have parking. So by Raymer's reading of this, that's a violation of the permitted use. We have errors in the zoning that are incomplete. When you rewrite zoning like this, you're clearly going to introduce, no one doesn't introduce errors in that process. So if you're going to fix the zoning going forward, you have to be sensitive to the fact you probably have a bunch of typos still in this thing that nobody's caught, and they're going to get caught by people doing upgrades, and they're going to come around and use that in a legal case. You're still legally vulnerable on this particular thing because of the way it was drafted. The value of just setting a height right now, there's not a whole lot of people begging for more height. I don't think in this entire conversation we've heard more than a few people beg for more height. So why not just make your life simple? Don't create more complexity in the code. Don't try to define massing. Just make it simple, get the job done, and then listen for feedback and then think about it later. Because otherwise it feels, I apologize, it feels sort of arbitrary. And having had that arbitrariness affect my home before, I take it very sensitive. I mean, I don't want to keep having to show up to catch these things that affect me. You guys make decisions that affect my house. Thank you.
Okay, thoughts? One thing I think we can agree on, and I understand Mr. Williams, although I think he's in TR, not CBD, but that is important, is 2 stories. So yeah, we're talking about heights that does impact some people, not a lot. We don't have a lot of residential in CBD. So at least we can agree on 2 stories, right? For the most part. The feet, he's bringing up a good point. Maybe we need to hash that around, but I think we at least have a sense that 35 is the max anyone would probably want to consider. Now, maybe I'm offline with that or off base with that, but I think at least we've narrowed it down to that. It's fair to say 2 stories in CBD. How we refine it, yeah, we can't do spot zoning, although you can tell us we can. I thought we could put some provisions for certain certain areas, just like we have certain areas that are next to each other, but they're different zones, TR and CBD. So we can agree on some things, I guess is what I'm saying. And the key would be, in this case, 2 stories.
We don't have a TR district anymore. That we had a TR. We removed that in the new zoning code. All of the parcels in TR were moved to other districts.
And what's your thought on spot zoning?
Thank you.
I mean, we're not talking about rezoning any property, we're just talking about adjusting the requirements in the CBD.
Yeah.
So I don't know that spot zoning comes into issue.
When the zoning was changed in the CBD from 30 to increasing to 35, what was the reasoning for that change?
35 feet is the maximum height of residential homes in all residential districts. 35 feet, I believe, is the height of commercial buildings in other districts. And so I think the idea, and I could be wrong, but the planning commission was like, well, 35 feet is allowed everywhere else. Why not in the CBD where we do see the biggest buildings? And I believe that was the.
I think that was logical. Yeah. I mean, it made sense.
I have a question. If we made it 30 all the way across and 2-story, yet plan development still exists in the CBD, or the possibility of plan development exists. In plan development, you can go 35 feet? So does that give an option? So can you keep it simple and just say 2 stories, 30 feet, and then see what happens?
I think we'd have to look at our plan development section. Cause I think we had some discussions that I think we might have specifically addressed that, whether or not height could be something that could be bypassed in plan development.
So it gives you an option for height, it gives you an option for something else, but everything else just stays simple. So there's still something there. If there's a great idea out there and somebody wants to go higher than 30 feet, it's doable.
We can check.
Tom Varner, Birchwood. What we're really talking about is maintaining our charm and uniqueness of our CBD. And that's based on the fact that the buildings are varying heights up and down the street and varying setbacks. So why couldn't we say that you can't replace an existing building with a building any bigger than the one you replaced? And the setbacks has to be the same. Otherwise, if we have 30 feet or whatever, we're gonna have a wall of 30 feet down Main Street. And that's really against the master plan, which talks about charm and quaintness and so on and so forth. So the charm and quaintness comes from the varying heights and the varying setbacks.
We have setbacks, so we're gonna get to, I think. right?
Yeah, we did have setback.
That's my opinion.
I appreciate that, yep. So the ordinance that we replaced last year has been in effect since 2005. The one that we replaced, 2005, 2006.
It was last modified or extensively modified in 2005.
Right.
But that ordinance really is the 1976 ordinance that has been updated continually
And
through.
if I'm remembering correctly, the maximum building height in that ordinance was 30 feet. So we somehow managed to keep our charm for at least 26 years and more than that, with a 30-foot limit on building height.
Except for exceptions.
Yeah.
That had no mention of stories, right?
It
did.
Yeah, it was 2 stories.
2 stories, 30 feet.
It's 2 stories.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm James Kenny, 134 West Bay Street. I just wanted to comment and support Chip's comments from earlier. And I think this conversation proves why you need to get more of an expert opinion. You keep going back to the same surgeon that botched the original job. And I guess why you wouldn't search for a new surgeon. To Bill's comment, I'm kind of shocked that that hasn't been my experience. My experience is seeing a bunch of typos and then the first job coming up, not what the community wants. And the fact that they couldn't turn around the study for the grocery store in 24 hours mean, that should be an expectation that they knew there was a meeting today and they weren't prepared. So, thank you.
Was that on topic?
Absolutely, it was applicable to conversation. There's a direct line from Beckett and Raider.
All right,
to this conversation.
all right. We're talking about what we're gonna do with the ordinance of the central business district. I keep coming back to 35 feet, 30 feet on the corner, and govern the mass with some of the other things that we're looking at, like architectural review standards, and that sort of thing. How does everyone feel about that? If we can't get past that, then we should probably adjourn.
Comment on the corner, just for clarification. That's an existing lot. So if it's 15 feet wide, grandfathered in, it's 30 feet back, or it's 64 feet wide, whatever that existing lot is what we're considering the depth or width of that corner.
That's a good point, and yes, that's how I would be in favor.
I don't think we should do that. I think if you're gonna say corner lots, I think what you should do is say any building within X distance of a corner.
Okay, that's fine too.
Cause
I think there is.
we have very limited control of somebody splitting their property.
Yeah,
and
no, I
things like
take your
that. So
point.
I would, maybe what I would say, when in our fencing language regarding fencing heights, we say a front yard fence can be 4 feet. But within 30 feet of a corner, so it's reduced to 30 feet or 3 feet. That would be my recommendation. If you're going to have a different height for properties near a corner, I would have it be X distance from the corner. So that it's the same on every block.
Yeah. Okay. Can you make a suggestion as to what that should be?
How many, the distance from the corner? You know, I'd have to do some research to determine what the average lot width is of the corner lots before I would feel comfortable just throwing a number up there.
Okay, well, let's say that that's how we're gonna measure it, and it'll be based on an average. Are we good with that, planning commission? Can you live with that? Let's put it that way.
I can.
And just to reiterate what you said, 2 stories, corner lot, 30, we'll talk about how we word that. 35 everywhere else.
Yes.
No setbacks as far as third or as far as second
No
floor. I'm
setbacks.
not setbacks that sense. I mean, second floor setbacks, nothing like that.
Right.
No language.
Right.
Adjusting that.
Yep.
And then how does it work on a corner lot for, is retail going around or what could be on that side?
That's what we're gonna talk about next, where
Yeah, we haven't defined the first floor yet.
The only thing I'm trying to wrap my head around, I guess for the most part, the key to me is 2 stories. I'm still trying to visualize what, as Offield said, if Huzza is 30, that seems awfully tall.
Yeah, I'm at 30 in the question of plan development, because that would give an option. So if there is another option.
And I had innovated,
Sorry.
turn the page, no, I'm sorry.
While you're looking,
Mhm.
my thought is be a little careful that planned development is the back door. Because as we all remember, the criteria for a planned development go through is very strict.
I know, that's why I thought it
And
was.
I just don't know if that's a viable path for an option. In my opinion, it might have to be, you know, a special land use or something like that to free up other options that we would review, rather than say, oh, don't worry, a planned development option will allow them to create, you know, creative things. I just don't know if that's realistic.
the other thing that you're and Jeannie, I'd ask you to consider is, this is what we're talking about. The distance from the floor to here, that's the incremental difference that we're talking.
I get it. From the bluff, if you're standing at the top of the bluff,
Yeah.
and so how much of a difference is it then? I agree with you. I thought 35 was fine, but then hearing the other heights made me back up.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the bluff, can you still see the water?
Oh, well, I can't say definitively, but I would certainly imagine. Yeah.
Well,
We've done that analysis. We have that analysis.
Okay, and And what does it say?
I can't remember exactly, I think of 35 feet it starts applying.
Okay.
It depends where you are.
Okay. All right. Yeah,
Just in the PD, so in the CBD, B1, B2 or ROS districts does allow in PD for height deviation, but you have to compare the proposed height to the surrounding buildings and make sure it's within the same scale, character, you know, as the adjacent buildings or surrounding buildings.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Does it make sense to split the difference of the height because we keep going back and forth between the 30 and 35?
look, I'm not gonna die on that hill. To me, we're talking now we're talking 2 feet.
Right.
And that just seems ridiculous to me, but if that's what makes everybody happy,
So here's the only thing I'm thinking. I don't want to negatively impact, and I'm curious to hear what Ms. Reeves has to say. I don't want to negatively impact someone on Bay Street, for instance, whose house, like Mr. Williams, if it's 35, can he not rebuild to 35? Because we're gonna make it 30? Assuming he's 2 stories, because you're only gonna be 2 stories, but if you have a fire, you're limited to 30. Is it fair?
Two quick points.
yeah.
One, the current land use map says that CBD is supposed to get bigger. And that's the issue I had with my house. Second one is in the surveys that were done in 2010, the suggestion was to ramp size.
Yeah.
So that the Third Street could be taller and that it would, to Jeannie's point, take the look line and keep it. And that had a more natural. That had a more natural flair. Shaken. And that was a public large survey.
Ms. Reeves' question. Oh, hey, yeah, sorry.
Perhaps we can approach this another way. And let's say we want the first floor to be 10 feet. I think the ceiling in here is at least 12.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what the floor section would be, but the second floor, let's say, is 9 feet. So consult with an architect and ask what roof do they want in our northern Michigan weather that will allow for a decent snow load, and what do they need for a floor system between the 2 stories, and then you might be able to make a more educated guess as to what you want your height to end up.
Yeah, actually, Mark Today was on the planning commission. And we asked him that very question, and 35 that's how we arrived.
That's how that was another reason how we arrived with 35 feet. It was an architect.
To allow 3 stories to be possible.
And it was also for a restaurant to be on the first floor if possible
Correct.
with the vent system and.
Right.
Correct. So they could have the proper ventilation and.
But now you're talking 2 stories. So now what would the number end up being?
I don't know.
Residential's 35.
Yeah. It never made a lot of sense to me, Vanessa, that the central business district, which is usually associated with the tallest buildings in a community, had the smallest height.
No, that was my.
So if we went with hypothetically 30, 35, 2-story, would we run into the scenario that Pierre Vitar has where he actually has an attic which is in a 3rd story? Do we want to make sure that I mean, it's probably not livable. I don't know if you can walk up there, maybe in the center you could. Is that something we need to address, that potentially that?
They're not compliant? I mean.
Well, you know what, I think that
There
you're right, they wouldn't be compliant, because even if it's there, it's not a story. Technically, I guess it is a story, but.
But I mean, there's non-compliancy all over the place. I mean, so we can't
Okay,
even
so
go
we're
there.
yeah, okay. I'm trying to noodle around the 35, and the 2-story is the most important. Is
I
the
just don't know
35?
how you can tell a business that they have to be smaller than a house.
I get it, I do get it.
What if you say 35 to allow for a facade of any sort? So 30 feet and then 35 if you want to make it a pitch, if you want to do something to make it
Yeah,
like Lamb Real Estate, you know.
I don't have, honestly, I don't have a problem with 35 foot. I don't. And I think you're still gonna get the undulation in building heights in town. And I think the biggest issue that we should be striving to address is what do we do to get rid of the bulk? That's why I'm trying to push us past this whole.
Okay.
Let's not make a decision then, yeah, let's talk about bulk, right?
Okay,
What do you think?
yeah, that's fine.
That is the biggest problem, I think. but-
Well, and that discussion of massing may lead you to have different opinions on building heights and
Yeah,
story
that's,
heights
that's
as
my
well.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe, yes.
Debbie Braun and I live, I have a house on Second Street. I'm in favor of what this gentleman said. If you make it 35 feet and then you've got in 25 years or 30 years, you've destroyed what everybody drives into town and their heart gets happy because they see these old buildings that are different heights, as you said, and I've been coming here for 66 years. And my heart sings when I go down Main Street because of all the old buildings. And I think you guys need to think of that because potentially if everything's gonna be 35 and I just don't think that's what Harbor Springs wants. Certainly not what I want. And I think you really need to think of what's there, what's preserved and what people love to drive into town and see.
So I understand your point. I guess my retort to that would be then why isn't every building in the central business district 30 feet right now? Because that's been the regulation for more than 26 years.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Did you want to answer that question?
Yes.
Let's talk about massing. So there are a number of ways to address massing that I've considered. And I'm just gonna throw out my ideas because I'm trying to move us along. One is requirement for setbacks, that there should be, we should not necessarily allow buildings to go right up to the property line, that we should provide for setbacks. We should maybe think about some sort of a ratio of the footprint of the building relative to the actual square footage of the lot. And that the relationship would be a negative relationship. In other words, the bigger the lot, the smaller the proportion of the lot that first floor can comprise. Hypothetically, let's just say it's a 40,000 square foot lot, which is reasonably large. You could only develop, I'm pulling these numbers out of the air, 70% of that 40,000 square feet. Whereas if you were on a 20,000 square foot lot, you could maybe develop 90%. So you're using because I think one of the things that struck me, Chip, and I think you as well, is the property that the project that we looked at earlier today looked so big because it was on such a big lot and they were right up to the lot.
Well, I want to take your thing about square footage versus the total square footage.
Yeah.
To total cubic feet.
Right.
Versus total cubic feet.
Oh, I see what
allowed.
you're saying.
And so maybe, if you look at, if you can use every square inch of 35 feet, what is that total cubic feet?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe talk about a reduced number on that.
Yeah.
That's just another concept. Because the bulk to me was the issue. And cubic feet is more important to me than square footage at this point.
Right. Interesting idea, yeah.
So I like the idea of green space. And the bigger the lot and the more green space that's being taken away, that all comes down to our drainage, trying to keep that drainage on site and trying to have some green spaces as well. If you're gonna go big, there's gotta be green spaces.
Right. Yep, totally agree.
Can we establish a historic setback? So can we say, okay, in 2026, this is where the setbacks were on all the stores? And so if somebody tears down J. McLaughlin, they can't build at the sidewalk, they can only build to where the existing building was built.
I don't know.
I think you can.
I'm for that.
For that.
So you grandfather the setback? Is that
Yes,
the
so
idea?
establish what it is right now, whether you have to have a historic overlay, I don't know, but establish what it is. And from this point forward, anything built has that restriction.
My concern there is you're potentially setting up where you have a different set of criteria and rules for each parcel. So now me as the owner of this lot, I'm subject to a different set of rules than this owner for this lot is. And I think that's where you do start to get into an issue of spot zoning.
But it's
where
just, it's already established as what it is. I mean, I think there's a way to do it.
I think you're touching into the territory where you're looking at situations where you're putting different criterias on different property owners. And it's starting to become a spot zoning issue.
I'd like
We
to
can
look
look
into
into
it.
it and see if that's enforceable, but I think that there's a serious concern there.
I'd like to look into it if everybody else is okay with that.
Well, I think it's worthy of looking at. I think that if we do what Chip and I are talking about, it might not be the exact setback for that particular property, but I think it's, the net result is gonna be similar. There's gonna be scaling of the building so that it's proportionate to the lot size. That's really what I was trying to accomplish with my suggestion. Yeah.
If you,
I was saying, yeah, Tony, sorry.
I actually am in full agreement with Chip on this. I think the volume of the building is a great concept.
Yeah, I agree.
If we go in that direction, then we'll have to look at a cunning developer that says, great, I'm gonna buy a city block. And if I can only build so much of that entire property, I'll split it up into 8 little projects. So each one can now be built farther out.
One way that you might be able to achieve the idea that you were talking about is maybe we leave setbacks at 0 lot line, but institute a maximum lot coverage. And that lot coverage shrinks as they add story heights. So maybe for a 1-story building, it's 80% lot coverage, but if it's a 2-story building, it's 60%. We can play with the numbers, but maybe, I don't know if that achieves. The other idea that I like about that is it's very easy to look at a plan, interpret that, and then make a determination of whether or not it complies with the code.
Regulate it.
To regulate, just as a thought of a way to achieve the idea that you were talking about.
Thinking about this a little more now, the only concern with either volume or square footage restrictions is that, would that make it possible for somebody to put a center courtyard in and still have what looks like a mass of a building on the outside?
Good.
Because that center courtyard wouldn't be public space necessarily, could be. But that would allow for no building there as opposed to a setback.
That doesn't
couldn't see it.
address the concern of
Massing.
this big building.
But I thought that's where you and Chip were in agreement on cubic feet or however you said that, which I thought was a good way to look at it.
Right.
So
in other
words,
I think
if we're concerned about mass, we should consider how to handle somebody putting a center courtyard in.
as viewed by the street.
I think you can answer that in stating that the lot coverage that's not covered is pushed to the exterior boundaries of the
There you go.
property. You could have language to address that.
Yep.
Yeah, because actually,
Well, that's.
Emmett County Courthouse does have a courtyard in the middle.
Yeah, you go to Europe, every city has a courtyard and
Absolutely.
I want a courtyard.
Okay, so we don't have the exact formula, but we have a concept of a formula. What about? There's a lot of suggestion in the ordinance today that some architectural amenities are typical, but they're not required. Like, we want to see horizontal and vertical articulation in the buildings. That we don't require it, it's just, that's what is typical. We would like to see the entrances set back so that it's not right up to the sidewalk. What do you guys think about taking the subjectivity of that away and requiring those things?
Can we without an architectural committee?
Well, I'm going there too.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would need an architectural committee. I'm not going there, or else I want gargoyles in all downspouts.
You want gargoyles?
Wouldn't we just talked about some kind of volume or lot coverage restriction and pushing that to the outside to achieve that? So, you know, I guess that the front door could still be on the street and, you know, maybe in the back setback. Okay, so I see where you're coming from.
Well, one of the things that we want to try and protect against are these blank walls, right? And I don't know that the setback requirements of the cubic analysis would prevent. I'm trying to, if you will, legislate that you can't have massive blank walls, or you can't have.
But I just don't know if this is the body that should be doing it as opposed to an architectural committee.
It would take some research to make sure, you know, that would be sustainable, you know. The thought that comes to mind to me is Gaylord. You know, they have a consistent architectural approach in their downtown, the sort of alpine ski. But, you know, that I think is required in their zoning ordinance, but that's already been established. Not having something like that, you probably need an architectural review committee to be on solid ground. It's something to explore, and I'm definitely happy to explore it though.
Okay.
On that same topic, Bob, another way that you could entice people or incentivize people to do some of these things that are currently mays that you maybe don't want to change to musts is give them the incentive. Your lot coverage is 60, but if you do these architectural features, you can up it to 65 or 70.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't choose to do those architectural features that Harbor Springs wants, you're gonna be at the lower lot coverage.
Right.
And that can apply to other amenities too, you know, like racks and things like that.
Yeah. Interesting, okay. And I guess the only other suggestion that I have, and I know you guys are all with me on everything I've said so far, is mandating that there's public space on the first level, that it is, you know, and it's gotta be at least a sizable portion, whether it's 100% or not, I'm not sure, but you know, we need to be talking about 70 to 80% of the first floor being devoted to commercial service, business, any public service, basically.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with that. I think the language needs to be worked out because it's public space or space that's required to help deliver on that use. You know, they've got to have storage closets.
Yes,
and
yes.
things like
That's
that.
why I wouldn't propose 100%.
Right. So we've got to just provide for that in the language to
Yes.
say that everything's got to be for that purpose.
Yep, I agree.
Don't we essentially have that already by saying that no residential on the first floor?
Somehow there's a loophole where
There's a
that's why
loophole.
they were able to determine that they can do, or they thought they could do parking, but technically they could do other things other than parking. But I thought it was gonna be retail or public use all around.
But that's why they gave us that small space of that business.
Yeah, that first level was about 1,800 square feet
Right.
of retail. Sorry, that was it.
I'd be in support of something to increase the amount of public space, retail, business, whatever it is.
Okay.
At the same time, I do think you have to have something for parking Cause we are still saying we want residential downtown. And to do a development with no parking or forcing those cars to be on the street with all the other parking doesn't seem reasonable either. If you go on Third Street, I mean, most of those businesses down the line or homes, you know, there's parking. And now we say you can't have parking, that we've got to have some balance.
Yes, I agree, and that was gonna be my final point, is that we do need to provide for parking if there are going to be residences. Should it be parking that's allowed in the first level of the building? I don't know. I don't think it should be. Should it be outside parking or a parking area? That's something different. Should the ratio be one parking space per residential unit? I mean, something like that, I think would make sense.
That's what was in the code before.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, the old code did allow parking on the first floor in the CBD. Maybe the answer is how much parking? Where we have a maximum lot coverage for building, we could say there's a maximum coverage for the amount of parking on site in the CBD. You know, if you're gonna develop whatever, only X% can be devoted towards parking. That still allows you the ability to have on-site parking to get some of the cars off of the street. I guess, and then the follow-up question is, does it matter whether that parking is inside a building or outside in a parking lot? You know, it's pulling it off the street, which I think is a benefit.
Yeah. I've thought about that a little bit, Jeff, and you know, my druthers would be that it not be a part of the first floor, that it be outside parking, but you know, perhaps it's something that we could consider on a special land use basis. So if they come to us and they say, you know, we want to provide indoor parking for the benefit of the, you know, the people on the second level, that's permissible if it's approved by the planning. Just a thought.
And how does that work where you're not getting rid of that public space or public retail or?
Well, we would have to basically say it's worth it to allow them to do that, to get the parking off the street, basically. We'd have the jurisdiction over that, Barry, is what I'm saying. We'd basically be saying, no, you can't do that unless we tell you it's okay.
So like this project that came to us at 289 Main, how would that look if they're saying, well, we want to get 9 spaces off the street? That's why we're proposing it inside.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's not how the ordinance is written right now.
Yeah.
You were gonna say something, Jeff? Okay, so I'm just noodling on this and I'm thinking, what if where the cottage company is now, what, God forbid, suppose that whole section burned and someone redeveloped that. If they put in, say, 300 square foot units and we allowed parking, even if it's only 2 stories, aren't we opening ourselves up to a scenario where there's gonna be a lot of parking? Or can we, because we talked about mass, but we didn't, and we talked about maybe a car space per unit. But what about a scenario where there are very small units and they propose parking in a 2-story building?
Yeah, 300 square feet is a pretty small residence, but
Well, one, we don't allow dwelling units that small. Or, you know, we're either at 600 or 800 or something like that. That's the minimum we would allow somebody to go. But I think, and to answer that question, to avoid that scenario where somebody just throws it full of a whole bunch of units and we have a minimum parking, that would be the bypass. Is instead, if you specify and say no more than X% of a building could be parking. Now you've allowed for some parking to be in that building to pull, you know, cars off the street, but you're limiting the amount of the building that could be dedicated to parking. If they wanted more, they could do it outside. But then that would be your control for the amount that's in a building.
Good. And 600, I mean, that's still pretty small. I can still see a scenario where
I think we kept it at 865, is that right?
865.
Dwelling units.
Yeah. But I like that guardrail, that type of thinking, because things could happen like that.
As a tentative placeholder, would 30% of a building on the first floor be acceptable for parking in a CBD?
Just don't, I don't think any way of judging that 30%.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's a typical garage for a single stall garage? Is it 10 by 20?
Well,
10 by 20 is like a typical parking space. Parking space out there is 10 by 20.
10 by 20 garage is tiny.
Yeah, it's
So.
parking lot.
something I think most people can wrap their head around is a typical 24 by 24 garage, which is normal size built, is a 2-car garage, and that is 576 square feet. So essentially one per vehicle, if you're looking at about 240 square feet per. Looking at the floor plan from the 289 property, that one was probably closer to 60, I'm guessing here, 60 to 70% parking. where
I thought it was more. Yeah,
It could be
maybe.
more.
I didn't run the
So
math.
if you reverse the ratio,
Yeah.
we saw the amount of office or retail space they had compared to parking. If they reversed the ratio of parking, would that be palatable?
Probably. Let me just do some quick math. 44 by 166. So I believe it would be. Sorry.
I have a question in the meantime. So with parking and garages, so if you figure, I'm just trying to get a visual, Third Street, Jay McLaughlin, somebody buys it, tears it down, they build what they want, and then they have their garage in the back. So if you're considering Third Street or even Bay Street, what would we want if we were neighbors across the street? So if there's a garage there that's approved, are there things that we need to build into it so that if I'm living across the street, I'm not looking at garages?
I wasn't paying any attention.
I don't blame you.
26% is roughly what the retail space was in that building.
So we could round it off to 25. Does that seem like a placeholder for now?
Yeah.
The other thing we could do is say that they shall not be on these streets. So no garage doors on Main Street.
For sure.
That they have to go inside street or something. Sorry, I'm throwing these things out there. Does that sound?
Yes, it does.
All right.
Absolutely.
Main and straight, Main and
This is a
state,
very good conversation.
you know, the path 119 at a minimum.
Good point, Ken. What other suggestions you all have? I think we may be providing Ken with enough guidance to possibly take a rough pass at some draft language. How are you all feeling about that? That we could maybe look at?
One last question.
Yeah.
Architectural review, did we do anything with that? Do we want him to, he's gonna look into that, correct? You're looking into that?
I can look into that. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're set on buildings, I'd like to delve into Jim's memo in parking related to the city as a whole.
Okay,
Is
well,
that, are we ready to do that? or
are
not?
we ready to do that, planning commission? We're ready to move on.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get some feedback.
Right.
And then we'll review that.
Right.
I'm a little nervous about the 90 days.
I understand. I
We can
understand.
always give that extended.
Yeah, well, we can, we have to ask city council to do it. They may or may not do it.
Well, that's true.
I have a quick question. There's been some discussion about the state of Michigan taking over local zoning.
Yeah.
Does that mean we have to get this done before they do that, or will they do that? How does that affect this whole process?
Blows it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that goes through, then
That's communistic.
it's there's not much we can do about it. But
Could they come in and modify our existing plan?
yeah, I mean, that's what the fear is. I don't know whether they can actually do that, and I really doubt that it's gonna pass, but that's just my opinion.
There's gonna be lawsuits there.
Yeah. And I don't think it should prevent the planning commission from continuing to work on it.
Yeah, Agreed.
I agree.
Karen, did you have something?
Karen Oshfield, West Traverse Township. So when we heard that the moratorium was just about to be submitted for your guys' approval, I called Lene Wells and I asked her, I said, is there something that you could do for us with this idea? And so she wrote a nice letter and she sent it to, I think, Bob and Jeff and the new city manager, offering her assistance on an absolute exclusionary basis, meaning she wouldn't be working for anybody else except for the city of Harbor Springs. And so I don't think she received a response from anyone. But what she wanted to do is to come up and she wanted to walk around town, spend time here, look at all the buildings, look at the buildings that have parking issues, look at the buildings that have the garages. When you say that, Ken has now some information, about our town and what your wishes are and things like that. Maybe it would be good to do a real fact-driven survey of our town and see what exists. There was one story that I was talking about with someone that had renovated and renewed a town down in Kentucky. And he said that when they started to renovate these buildings and new buyers would come in, all of the access to the second stories had to be by elevator, had to be ADA compliant. And so some of the buildings collaborated and made common elevators for the whole second floor. So who knows what the future is going to be, as Vanessa keeps saying, of change. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention about looking at our town and seeing what the deficits and the assets are. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I'm hearing the planning commission say, have at it, right? And I'm prepared to move on to whatever the next issue is you want to talk about.
I just want to address a portion of Jim's memo, and that's talking about parking. So if we look at page 8 on Article 3, it's the last page of Jim's memo. We can see the line that he's highlighted there of the special land or the land use table with private parking lots. And we can see that right now, the only parking that's permitted in Harbor Springs is in the B1 and B2 districts. B2 is by permitted use and B1 is by special land use. I think this is something that we need to address and take care of. Right, because right now, any parking in any other district is in violation of the code. And we're not permitted we wouldn't be able to issue any permits or do anything until we address this. What I would like to do, and this is a suggestion, go ahead.
One quick question. This is about private parking lots, right?
Well, this
And
is.
so like
this
if I
is
want to build a
private parking.
house with a driveway.
Private park.
No, this is private parking. So Jim has stated
Yeah.
that residential parking in that building didn't
In
meet
the
this
CBD.
section.
Yeah.
No, but he specified it for that building because that's what we requested. But based on that interpretation and the way that this line is worded, parking isn't permitted in town other than B1 and B2. So because we didn't allow parking in a building in that building, that means that parking in a building in other buildings, like for instance, R1 and R2, it's not permitted. So garages are not permissible in the city of Harbor Springs right now.
Can I add a point to this?
So
Yeah.
To build on this point, you have a requirement that other people do have to have parking. You have a requirement right there that he cited for you guys to knock down this approval that said it's not a permitted land use. You have an inconsistency right now that the guys who left the room are probably working on in the interpretation, because we have conflicting language in it, and you don't define what private parking is anywhere in the zone.
So and again, yes, we do have in the code, certain zoning districts are required to have parking, but then we say it's not a permitted use. So my recommendation is, one thing that I think we want to avoid is we certainly don't want to just permit parking lots in the residential neighborhood. We wouldn't want somebody to come in and just pave and create a parking lot. So my suggestion is we add another qualifier for a symbol for this table, that like an A or something that would designate that it's permissible as an accessory use. So it wouldn't be the primary use of the property. But that if you have other uses there, that parking could be an accessory use to that, opening up the possibility then so that we meet the criteria of if they're requiring parking that they can then have it. So, and going through this list then, and I think we can do it very quickly, is just look at each of the zoning districts and identify whether we want to see parking lots available and just put a P there, or an S for special land use, or an A that it can be done as an accessory use. But with the understanding that whether it's parking outside in a driveway or in a parking lot or parking inside in a building, that we need to address it and determine whether we want to permit it or not. I got it. And I think we can do that fairly quickly, but if we need to slow down, if anybody has any questions, I'm not trying to rush you through. But this is something that I do think that we need to address. Is everybody with me so far? I'm not.
Yes.
Yeah, I say if we roll with it, and then if we have questions, we'll stop you.
Yeah, absolutely. So RA, which is a residential agricultural district.
Accessory, right?
What approval process and how would you like to see that accessory use where they could have parking if they have another primary use there?
Yes.
Does that seem appropriate?
Yes.
Pause, what is accessory use in terms of the approval process? Is it by right?
So if we look at the code, we, right now, there's a section that says accessory uses can be done on a property, if it's an allowable use in that district already. So right now, for instance, let's say that we have a showroom floor, for instance, within the central business district of a car dealership. An accessory use in a car dealership, they're going to have some office space as well. So it's not the primary use of the property, but it accompanies their main use. It's a supporting use of the element, right?
So what constitutes a supporting element in the context of a parking space? If I have a second story condo, is that a supporting element and therefore an accessory use by right?
Well, I guess that's a follow-up is also the next question is, do you want it approvable by right or through special land use approval?
Okay, so accessory, I understand, I'll roll with it, but accessory use doesn't mean anything until we define, is it by right or not by right?
Correct.
Okay.
So I think we're looking at two separate things, whether we want it to be a use on its own in that district or only as an accessory use. And then separately, what the approval process for that would be. So in RA, the residential agricultural district, we wouldn't want to see a parking lot.
Right.
But are we comfortable with having parking spaces for a business or a home in that district?
Yes.
Yes.
Are we comfortable with that being administratively approved as a by right action? Or through whatever process it is, or would we want a special land use to be able to have parking spaces in the residential agricultural district?
All right.
I think it'd be by right, yes. But don't we have to define how many?
We already have the zoning code that tells us minimum and maximum number of spaces.
Okay, so in this RA example, we would be okay in that.
Yeah, there's a number out there.
We have another section of the code that dictates the number of parking space, minimum and maximum.
Based on the use, allowable use.
Yeah.
Let me take a stab, and I'm working with you here. Let me take a stab at seeing if we could categorically define this in the sense that what we're talking about is a parking space that's intended all the time to be for parking, like a parking lot usage, versus a parking space for a vehicle that supports another primary use.
I got that.
Right.
Okay, so what I would suggest is we say that only the city can create parking spaces that are dedicated to be parking spaces. Everything else must be an accessory use supporting some other reason, like you live there, or I have a farm or a flower shop and I need my delivery truck parked right there to support my business. Okay, then it's just, it gets to be pretty easy, where it's a by right if it's an accessory supporting definition. And it's no if it's, I'm gonna create a parking lot and charge money for parking spaces. Because that's the city's job and the city's jurisdiction to take care of that, so. Does that make it easier?
That's why I'm proposing that we create this designation of accessory use so that it wouldn't be just a permitted use where somebody could put in a parking lot.
But we can in B2 right now. Somebody could buy the property and build a parking lot. It's permitted.
No,
Only, right now, only in B1 or B2.
Right, that's my point. In B1 or B2, you could buy the land and make a private parking lot. I'm fine with that. I'm just making sure that we understand that we can, it's not a city only
right.
Okay,
capacity.
so I was modifying the existing code.
Right.
So you wanna take it away from B1 and B2?
I don't think we should.
I'm not advocating for that. I'm just trying to delineate the goats from the chickens here. And so keep it in B1 and B2. Which protects CBD, right?
So what about R1, residential, single family? What?
Jeff, are you working on specifically on the line that says private parking lots?
Yes.
So does, in a residential district, it's not really a parking lot.
But this is the line that Jim Raymer has used to say that parking in a building or parking in the central business district is not permitted.
Okay.
So we can create a separate line. But and a parking lot could be 1 parking space, 2 parking spaces, 30 parking spaces. We have the control in the other section that talks about parking of how many parking spaces are permitted based on the primary use. So we've addressed the number of parking spaces.
Right. I mean,
Now-
I'm agreeing with that.
So let me jump in. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Please continue.
Should it just be changed to private parking? I mean, a residential garage is not a parking.
Okay, we can change it to just say private parking.
Or spaces rather than lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're onto something.
See all the cars in my driveway?
What's the definition? Private parking lots. There is a definition. Provide feature parking along, maneuvering. Doesn't say anything about whether you charge money or not, but it mostly defines the space. But we need to delineate parking definitions better. We have parking facility, parking lot, off-street, parking space. We aren't really talking about garages or driveways, which is, I think, our hang-up. So going back to the private parking lot line, I'm picking up on your thought, Tony, is that keep the S and the P, Chip. And then I'm not gonna allow any parking lots anywhere else unless it's going to be for a support purpose of all those other districts. That's what I would propose. So fill them all in with is A, if you want. And then we need to define these terms a little bit.
So everybody is an A and everybody is an S.
I don't know that I would put everybody as an S. I think in residential neighborhoods, like just if somebody's building a home and they wanna have a garage and they wanna have a driveway that they can park a couple vehicles in. Do we need to have them come to the planning commission to get permission to do that? I think.
If they don't, what if they don't want a driveway?
Then they can't build their home because Emmett County won't issue them a building permit.
Without a driveway?
Correct.
So I think for all of the residential, it should be A. For a mobile home, should be A. RM could be A. Yeah, let's see, it's
Community.
Community,
oh yeah. Community, that should probably be,
I don't think that there's gonna be very many private parking in community. We have another section here for municipal parking lots.
you know,
And I think that might,
and we can't tell schools what to do anyways.
yeah.
and in the community district, municipal parking is a permitted.
Okay. ROS, I would say would be A.
Mm-hmm.
The waterfront district would be the commercial waterfront properties.
Yeah.
Are we comfortable with an A there for accessory? I don't think we have any just full parking lots without primary buildings. And then the industrial. Accessory.
Yeah.
What do you think about in the central business district? Just accessory use or with special land use?
I would say special land.
Special land use?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed the waterfront. What was that?
Accessory.
Okay. I mean, I know I just threw that out there as a suggestion, but I felt like it was a simple answer that addresses Jim's memo and puts us back in, if we want to go back and fine tune this or readdress some things later. But I think this is something that we could add to the language that we're gonna draft and include it in the public hearing and get this through along with the other things with the moratorium to get us back on track here pretty quickly.
Okay, so the accessory parking, you'll work on the definition, something to the effect of supports a primary purpose, something like that. Is that the idea?
I don't think we need to have a definition for it. I think what we would do is at the beginning of this Article 3 regulated uses table, it's not shown on here, but before it, there is a list of this is what this symbol means.
Right.
And that we would add something there that would be, you know, a symbol for it's an allowable use, but an accessory use only.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
Okay, so, and you'll work on the exact word. Okay, so back to my other point, do we need residential parking defined? Or will this accessory parking define it for us? Cause that's an open gap right now.
Let's just define it.
Yeah.
We can create a definition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just define it.
Article 6 defines how many parking spaces people have to have.
Yeah, I'm not talking about how many. I'm talking about, does it exist or not, and what is it?
The definition.
The definition.
No,
and-
it's not.
And let me, pardon me, I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but let me give it another related assignment, and that is we need to go through and make sure that we've scrubbed and fully defined all these different aspects of parking. Above and beyond these three that are in the Article 14 right now. I'm sensing it's still kind of squishy in terms of what we're defining from parking.
Yeah.
Also, are we allowing something that we just denied? We have to make sure that we're not doing that as well.
I don't think we are.
Yeah. We'll differentiate what we're talking about tonight from a private parking lot, which is what was done tonight.
Yeah, and I think we've discussed a couple things. One, in the CBD, it would be a special land use approval. And then also we had in the previous discussion specifying that there would be a maximum amount that would be allowed. So I think those two things give us our guardrails so that we can have a discussion and make sure that it's something that this community wouldn't mind seeing.
Was you say maximum amount per on the ground floor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Percentage.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Planning Commission members, any other comments?
One comment. As an abundance of caution, would it be in our best interest and the cities to ask city council to extend the moratorium, knowing that we probably do not need a tremendous amount of time
But rather than wait till a crisis, do we want to put something out there where we say, in case we don't have this done with community input, final language, et cetera, city council, please give us your, I almost think it's not, if we can do something conditional where we say, hey, give us another 90 days, but we could bring it to just 30.
I think we did the analysis last time and we had to come up with a decision at this meeting to comply with all the notice requirements, right?
And it looks like we're on track to do that.
No, I mean, I'm not agreeing to anything until I see some proposed language and, I mean, I'm not deciding anything tonight.
No, that's what we're talking about. Today, the purpose is for you guys to have a discussion, determine what types of rules you'd like to see. We'll set the format, we'll come back with draft language. We'll review that draft language. You can make changes to it at that time.
Okay.
But then hopefully at the next meeting, following whatever changes you propose at that time, we would be prepared with those changes to schedule a public hearing for then. So we would discuss it in August and then hopefully be prepared to have a public hearing in September.
And I thought our deadline was September 1st.
September 7th, or I thought.
Yeah.
So that's my point. Aren't we cutting it a little close?
We're not complying if that's the case.
Is there anything that you see coming down the pipeline that we're holding up? Do we have a little wiggle room to just have a safeguard?
I think it's never a good idea to extend a moratorium unless you really need to.
Am I doing the math wrong? I mean, I thought September the 4th or whatever was gonna be, and back it all up, I thought this meeting we had to decide. And, because, am I wrong? I could be wrong.
I think you're right.
I think I'm
I'll
right.
I thought that's what you mentioned, is if we're diligent and get the language decided, so it could be finalized tonight. I'm not sure we're there.
Right, and we're definitely not there.
No, we can't finalize it. We need to come back with what it will look like.
Okay, I mean, if you're done with all the timelines for notice periods and all that kind of stuff.
We'll relook at stuff and see what needs to happen, but I think once we get closer, because we might determine at the next meeting that we're not ready to move forward, but I think to arbitrarily right now say we need another 90 days, we don't know what we need, and I don't think we should ask for something until we do know what precisely we need.
So when we get together next, we're gonna know whether we've got anything solid or whether or not we still have a lot of holes in the ship. And I think if we feel very squeamish and skittish about it, then I think at that point in time, I think it makes sense to go back and say, we're not gonna make it.
Okay,
We're meeting in middle, like August 15th.
right, August 20th.
August 20th.
So, and the city council meets on when, first and third Monday?
We meet Monday, this upcoming Monday.
Okay.
This is Labor Day.
So they will have had their 2 August meetings by the time we meet.
Well,
And then their first meeting will be the 7th of September, their second is the 21st. So by the time we meet on August 20th, we will not have time to tell them for another.
we're not at that point yet. So at the August meeting, we would come up with language and see if the language is right. We would then still have to have a public hearing here.
Right.
Which would then be at our September meeting.
Yeah, we're talking November, October at the earliest.
Right, so we've blown the timeline.
Yeah, that's my point.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is, I don't think we can make it, but if I'm an applicant, I probably, in fairness to the applicant, I don't want them to think, oh, the moratorium is gonna be over soon, I can submit my application. Maybe I'm off base, but I'm looking at it from that applicant standpoint too, which is, guys, you may not have this done, probably not in September. So tell me ahead of time so I don't rush my architect and.
That's reasonable.
Is there a downside to that?
To extending the moratorium?
Yeah.
Every time we extend the moratorium, I think we weaken our case in court to defend the moratorium.
Well, I'm willing to take that risk rather than someone supplying it and putting in an application under the existing code right now that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why it would weaken it. We're trying to get this right rather than push something through.
I'm
Dare I suggest-
always forthright, I'll be forthright. when we meet again, and let's say the language that comes back is perfect, then that means city council will meet again after the moratorium is over. So the moratorium is going to essentially expire in terms of decision-making by the time of our next meeting. So can we bet on the we'll like everything about the language next meeting?
Does it expire at the beginning of September or at the end?
Beginning.
I thought I heard September 2nd or something like that.
I think it's
Fourth or seventh.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, the city council first meeting is September 7th. And then I don't know how much time it takes to create a moratorium. Is there a public meeting notice and all that stuff required for that? Jim Raymer has to draw up language. I don't think we're gonna make it. I wanna make it, Jeff. I don't wanna delay. But I just don't think we're gonna be able to make it fit.
There are just special meetings.
Can we meet in 2 weeks?
You should just. You remember when we did the code, we had 2 or 3.
And we did it, almost felt like for a year.
Right. So it had to be just right before we were all.
Right.
I think the main factor on whether we would be able to meet again in 2 weeks to discuss would be if Beckett and Rader have the time available to put this together and make these changes and have it in a format that we could review to determine if we're satisfied with the language.
Well, I suggest that if Beckett and Rader can do that, that we do have a special meeting.
We assume they can.
I think we can.
Yeah,
So we should plan on that.
we can't afford to wait for 3 weeks.
I think it makes a stronger case for being able to extend the moratorium if we do meet and we can't. We'll feel comfortable, then there's like.
We do everything in our power.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't wanna scramble to get the city council created their delay.
We should do
Let's plan on that.
So the July 30th or August 6th?
August 6th, right? Or is it the 30th? What's the
30th.
Today's the 16th, 30th.
It would be the 30th, July
The 30th
30th?
would be better.
Yeah.
I think if we did August 6th, if we met on the 30th, we liked the language and we wanted to schedule a public hearing, we could schedule that public hearing for our August 20th meeting. I think if we met on the 6th, we might not have suitable
Enough time.
time
Let's do the 30th.
for a public hearing.
Yeah, and thank you, because I now realize that September 7th is Labor Day. So that means that the city council will not meet in September until the 14th.
21st,
21st.
which would be after our September meeting, which was, if we were on schedule, that would be the meeting
The
that,
moratorium expires early September.
Yeah, June 4th is when it was adopted.
Right, so it's 90 days from June 4th to September 4th.
And the 21st is the only meeting in
Yeah,
September.
so we,
Okay.
we're not gonna.
So it will expire before they meet in September.
Yes.
Mhm.
If everything isn't perfect, we have this meeting on the 30th. We can still extend it on the 30th if we need to, correct? Okay.
That's what we should do.
And the sole purpose of the meeting on July 30th will be to work on this language we discussed tonight.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
I'm out of town on the 30th, but I know I'm in good hands.
Yeah.
There are no new proposals coming in, we know that.
Anything else? We are now on hour 4.
Good
So,
job.
Make a motion to table the remaining items.
excellent idea.
Are there any
Is
other?
there?
I like it, but I like that.
There some signs.
What are we going to do with this entire list? There were 20 items, 2 pages. Are we going to go through each one of those?
I would like to suggest that we see what Beckett Rader comes back with and ask ourselves, is that palatable to us? That's what I would say.
But we didn't ask them to do anything about bicycles, or some of these other things.
We did not.
Well, I don't want to extend this meeting, but there were topics that we didn't cover that are on this table. Does that matter or not?
I think the ones that were of importance are the ones that they're gonna be building out. So, and I think the first page mostly, except for bicycles, is all kind of in one. as far as-
My feeling is if we can agree on building height, you know, controlling mass, all of that, that's the heavy lifting as far as I'm concerned. The rest of the stuff is cosmetic.
Well, the bikes pissed me off.
Storm.
I mean, that wasn't the intent when we put the bicycles in that code. It was not for private bicycle parking in an indoor garage. That was not the
I
intent.
understand. I promise you will have an opportunity to voice that concern.
Stormwater.
Stormwater bikes.
Oh, I mean, what, I mean, when we get stuff back to Raider, and we review it, do we have to agree to it completely as is, or can we make changes to it?
You can make some changes to it.
And it still works within the timeline.
Well, no, it still puts us into September, because if you look at the
We
timeline.
gotta,
But I think we need to show the effort before we.
okay,
And what's gonna be presented at the 30th is the response will be planning commission, yes, Ken, you got what we asked for, correct? You interpreted our discussion and
Right.
put it in ordinance format.
Yeah.
So I'll be.
And it's simple with the biking. All you have to do is say it has to be public biking.
Okay, so suggestion, Mr. Chairman,
Certainly.
of the remaining items on the list, stormwater, architectural standards, historic character, all these other things that we didn't talk about tonight. Whoever has passion for those items, members of the planning commission, come in with specific proposed language. Not just, I think it's like this stuff, but come in with, I think Article 7 should be changed to this to address my issue. And let's see if we can get the ball down the court a little bit further.
I have a question regarding that, I'm sorry. With architectural review and historic overlay, they kind of go together? How does it work? How much teeth can you put in architectural review without an overlay? Is an overlay something we have to have more teeth in our?
I'll have to research that question. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay,
No.
because I'm not stuck on having an overlay, but if it gives us more power, then I think it's something we should look into.
Okay.
I don't want to speak for everybody.
I think they're protecting different things and using different methods for different goals. I think if your goal is preserving the character of the community, architectural design standards and an architectural review committee, you're kind of establishing, here's what we want our community to look like. And the teeth that will have will be based on how much language you put in there. It can be as minimal, where we only want to have a little bit of input here on what things are gonna look like, or it could be really in depth. Right, like, Ken mentioned Gaylord. Gaylord has some really strong form-based zoning saying, we want our buildings to have this chalet style.
Right.
We don't have to go that far.
Right.
We can just say, we wanna just touch our feet into that and have a little bit of input on what people do.
But in my mind, we need somebody who has that experience. An architect or a designer or some, a historical preservation person. Is this a separate committee? Is this something we can just put in, or does it have to be specific by the time we approve it? Can we just say that this is going to be a part of it? Or we have to have every single element of, in our architectural review, it has to be boom, boom, boom.
We would certainly need to establish standards. If we're gonna have an architectural review board or somebody that's gonna look at the design, we have to have the standards to say, here are the criteria that we're going to review.
Okay,
It can't be arbitrary, right?
and will it be a separate board from us? Because.
It could be a separate board, it could be the same board, I would have to look into that,
Okay, so.
right? But developing that and creating that, if that's something that we wanna do, is gonna take longer than what we could do under a moratorium.
Right.
I would also recommend that a lot of these other items that we didn't get to today in the topic review section are, the moratorium was specifically about buildings that are taller than 2 stories and taller than 30 feet. We're getting into those items is getting outside of what the moratorium was for. I still think that they're valid items to discuss, but maybe we don't make sure that we address it in what we're doing right now. We know that we're picking up and relooking at other aspects of the code as quickly as we can. We intended to get to it by this point, but that kind of got put up to the side because of the moratorium and needing to address this issue. So we can just add these things to that list, the things that we've, set aside and tabled, and just make sure that we bring that back as quickly as we can. If that works for you.
So can we, outside of the 30th, the next meeting, when we're good here, have that as on the agenda, we're going to hit these things that have been in the parking garage or
I
lot.
think as soon as we address and have our public hearing, getting all of this stuff set to fix the section of the code that we said we needed to fix, addressing building heights in the CBD. I think the next thing we put on the agenda, other than of course applicants, is let's look at all of these things that we wanted to address in the code.
I just don't want them to be forgotten. Okay,
No, we will not let them be forgotten.
Okay. thank you.
I suggest we adjourn.
Second.
You have the power.
Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.